studios of Yoakley Scott Corporation and your sports network.
Yeah, I've been closer to Jesus before, so can you help me out? Oh, can you help me?
Well, welcome in, everybody, to a Monday edition of Running Point. I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulties as it is right now. Anthony Hartwig not going to be with us today. We do have our owner. I should be pointing this way. DJ Yoakley is going to be in-house with us today, so we get the treat of having the owner for the next 3 hours on Running Point. I'm still here with you today, and we have a lot of things to look at today, DJ.
What's going on, buddy? Yeah, a little bit of technical difficulties. It's like riding a bike. You know, you get on it, and then you start pedaling, you fall off, and you just pick it up and go again. So we're here. 3 hours of fun and ready to go with you, buddy. So just to catch everybody up, a little bit of interesting news on Friday for you, Ty, as you were covering the Austintown Fitch Falcons, a situation where you didn't really know where you were going to be. You knew that they were playing McKinley. You knew you were excited about going, obviously covering Fitch as we all are when we cover our games. But you didn't know where you were going to be, my friend, and a little surprise for you on Friday, it sounds like.
It was a surprise. And you know what? Surprisingly, doing all the research on Canton McKinley, learning the team name, learning everything I need to know, learning how long they've played, the record against Fitch all time. Somehow the fact that they play at Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium slipped my research, and I didn't know that. I just thought they played at Canton McKinley High School. Little did I find out that the high school is actually connected to the Hall of Fame in some capacity, and that's really cool. But it was just another really cool experience because I'm pulling in and I'm driving past the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'm looking over and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I get to drive past it on my way to Canton McKinley, and then it says turn right into the Hall of Fame. I'm like, what? I pull in and I have to park, and I call Paul, and he didn't answer. And I texted him. I'm like, am I at the right spot? But no, it was a really cool experience, and I'm sure much cooler too for those kids, as I'm sure it's Coach Parker. Coach Parker hopes that's not the only victory he gets on Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium this year.
Yeah, as they're playing the state championships there again this year, so that's going to be exciting. And I think, Ty, that the funniest thing for me is there's a lot of inside jokes to what happened on Friday with you and figuring out where you were going to play. We left it alone. We were nice. We played by the rules on Friday. But seeing the excitement, I mean, you texted me, what was that, Saturday, about how excited you were to do that game. There was, I mean, just to announce that game for you, I mean, you were announcing from the moon, similar to where I was, in Toledo. What was that like for you? It's difficult to announce and try to keep things going from that high in the stadium and get a good angle for everybody at home.
It is very hard to try to get a good angle, so you have to be a little bit more radio broadcast-esque. You're going to have to explain a little bit more. The dots are a lot smaller now, so you got to explain who's got what and why they got it and where they are on the side of the field. The biggest thing and the biggest adjustment you have to get on when you're up that high in the press box, you don't have the natural sound of the stadium as much because the windows are all closed, so you don't have the windows open. Because I was in a suite, so it's quiet. I got another guy a few chairs down with me. He's doing stats for McKinley, but no sound in it. So you hear the echo off of the wall a little bit, and that takes a little bit of getting used to for a minute when you're trying to announce. But other than that, it was just a really cool experience being up there. And just got to explain yourself a little bit more.
Did you have someone working the camera with you?
I was working the camera solo. I was solo dolo on everything.
On solo in the Millennium Falcon on Friday night, dude. That's what I mean. I had Siggy was with me, but Siggy was doing stats. And I put a headset on him just so maybe I could bounce, if I need a drink or something, I could bounce some ideas off him. And that was his first time doing stats on our StatCaster thing on iPad. And what he got more into it as the game went on because he got more comfortable with doing the stats. But I'm sitting there doing, and people don't realize this at home. Hopefully they don't realize we're doing scoreboard. We're trying to watch and we're trying to film all at the same time. We're doing like 4 or 5 jobs. Oh, by the way, the commercials have to run too. So, people don't realize and when they watch these games, we get people sending messages and I appreciate it. It means they're watching, right? But at the end of the day, like a lot of times there's one guy or 2 guys trying to do, 15 different jobs and make sure. So kudos to you, man. That was from that high.
Yeah.
I said it to my wife when we were in Toledo. If I had to do this all by myself, I would not. I would have, like, she went with me. She said, I'm going to run the video. I do not like heights at all. So watching it gave me the chills of doing that Toledo game because you were on the moon, dude, shooting down.
I was, and the interesting thing was it took me about an hour to figure out the perfect camera angle, and I was doing all the adjustments. I was doing the tilts. I was trying to lean it forward, trying to just find that angle. I found a pretty decent angle, and you know what? It was one of those situations where it's like, hey, I'm by myself, but we're going to make the most of what we got right now. And I think we had a pretty successful night. Yeah, luckily when I do have Brandon there, it does help tremendously with the cameras, and obviously to the students, and then the workers at Austin Town when we have the home games do a phenomenal job as a camera crew, and we can't thank them enough. They help us out tremendously for what we do too as well. But yeah, certain capabilities we have at certain games, other ones we don't. So we just kind of have to make the most of what resources are provided to us. You got it, brother. Today, let's talk about high school football. Of course, we're going to do some recaps, what we saw, what we didn't see from some teams. That's interesting. I also want to talk about the NFL. I'm a little confused because, and this will be in the second hour, the NFL has one less game, right, this year for preseason, the Steelers and Cowboys aside. But you look at it, there's nobody that plays this week, Ty. Nobody plays at all this week. This is a dead week in the NFL. Why did they not schedule anything this week? And is this what we have to look forward to? We're going to talk about that. I want to hear from the people because I think this could be trouble with injuries moving into week 1 and week 2 with nothing going on at all. We're also going to touch on. Did you watch any of that game on ESPN yesterday with IMG winning 51-0 over some school in Ohio? I think they're from Columbus. I'll have to get that official. I think I saw something like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. They played on Friday, and then they played again yesterday. And it was a 51-0 defeat. I mean, apparently this school came out and said that they had 5 targeted players from, that were on the ESPN top 100. That wasn't the case. And this team got beaten into the ground 51-0. IMG was completely in control of that game. There was even a weather delay. So there's a lot of hands up in the air. I mean, listen, if we can do, and I'm not saying that we can stack up against the mothership, so to speak, but if we can do our research for the most part, how does those 4 letters, how do they not do their research and go, hey, this is a little shady? Yeah, honestly, because we know the talent that's congregated here, especially when it comes to baseball, basketball, football, all the sports. I mean, we're a mecca for a lot of sports. Football and baseball, I think, especially as of late, are 2 sports that we are huge in as of late. So I think, yeah, I just, it goes back to just doing research, man. You just got to do a little bit of research, and I think you would have been able to figure that one out pretty easily. I think it was a bad move on their end, and I think it really showcased the lack of research that was done. We do have breaking news into the newsroom. We actually had it yesterday. If you've never been with YSN before, you have to understand we do not report bad news. We don't like when teams are suspended or players are suspended, that stuff. We keep people up to date on cancellations and things of that nature. But this is a news story out of Cardinal Mooney. So we're going to send you over to our partners over at WFMJ for more information on some breaking news out of the technically the sports world, because it does affect their football team. So if you want more information on this breaking news story that we are going to steer clear of, because that is our beliefs, that is what we do here at YSN.
go over to our friends over at Channel 21 WFMJ and collect that story. It's a big story, and it's going to affect football in some capacity this Friday night, Ty. So, we're just skimming over that one, as that's how we're going to do it. That's a judgment call on my part. I don't want to start now with bad news, because then every piece of bad news, people are going to wonder why we're not covering it. So head over to 21 WFMJ for updates on that story. They'll keep you abreast of the situation all afternoon and into I'm sure the 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock as information is provided. So thanks again to our friends, our partners over at 21 WFMJ, do an unbelievable job of promoting what we do at YSN, and we're very grateful and thankful for them. So again, breaking news out of the news/sporting world here locally, head over to Channel 21 WFMJ. Ty, let's talk about your game on Friday. Austintown Fitch showing up again, and TJ Parker has those boys primed and ready. There was a lot of people that thought that Fitch might not be able to stack up against Canton McKinley, but I felt like they were not only in it the entire game, but they were dictating the tempo. They were doing everything that they could to just walk away 2-0 after it was said and done.
Yeah, and you know what? This is part of Coach Parker's MO, because he wanted to schedule up this season, and a couple of Division I opponents back to back. First in Canton McKinley last week, Glen Oak coming up this week. So you're facing up a division, Fitch, of course, being Division II. And Coach Parker wanted to do that. He wanted to schedule up. He wants to put these boys through a gauntlet, a tougher schedule, because in your coach's corner with him, DJ, he mentioned it himself that he wants to beat Harding at the end of the season. It needs to be overcoming Harding. They know that that's their rival, and Harding's probably going to be a team that might step in their way again, Division II. So they're going to have to be able to get through Harding again going into the postseason. But I mean, going into this game and playing in Tom Benson Hall of Fame Stadium, Coach Parker and the Falcons, you're right, dictated tempo from the onslaught. And sophomore running back DJ Williams, oh my God, was he turning it up on Friday night? 3 touchdowns too, was getting the outside edge rushes all night long. Once he got to the outside, you weren't catching him. McKinley, though, they had some size, too, on that offensive line, and they had some size in the receiver department. Harold Fannin Jr. was huge, 6'3", 230, just a monster, a beast at receiver. Their one lineman was 6'8", like 280, like absolutely huge. But, I mean, that was the biggest thing, is the Falcons can adjust well, and they have some pretty decent size up front on their own, but Devin Sherwood, too, an improviser, as his skill as an improviser has improved tenfold over the season. And you could see that. Didn't have a passing touchdown, but passed very well. And his football IQ and his vision are tremendous. Able to break out of the pocket, able to improvise and get yards on the ground as well. I think he is one of the premier quarterbacks in the area. And I think he showcased that they're going up against a D1 defense and coming away with a victory at their place.
Yeah, when you talk about Devin Sherwood, yes, he can get it done with the X's and O's, but I think it's what he does whenever the play breaks down and there's nowhere else to go. I don't want to compare him to Ben Roethlisberger, but when a broken play happens, Devin Sherwood is amongst the best of being a magician when things like explain to me, Ty, when you're looking down at that field and you see Sherwood and number 2 running around all over the place and being able to do it with his legs, with his arm, that has to be reassuring for a coach like TJ Parker to say, hey, when stuff happens, I still have, QB1 to get me out of some jams.
I mean, it's tremendously helpful because, if a play does break down, then you basically have a fix-all. It's the duct tape of the sports world. And Devin Sherwood, he's going to fix everything for you. But, I mean, that's the biggest thing when you watch Devin is when he breaks out of that pocket, because he has such a phenomenal arm, too, that he could throw it. He could launch a 30, 40-yard pass with tremendous accuracy, too. And that's the thing. You see him break out of the pocket. So elusive, so hard to bring down, doesn't get brought down very often. And he's one of those guys, he'll run and he'll go head first into a dive, trying to get extra yards on the run as well. So that's the biggest thing, I think, with Devin Sherwood. He's a fighter, man, and he fights tenfold to the very last second. And the funnest part about watching him, and the most enjoyable part, is you watch the game, and then when you see him break out of the pocket, he'll either start rolling to his left and rolling to his right, and you just start watching the receivers. You start watching for where's Dan Evans, where's Tyler Evans, where are all these kids at, because you start seeing, and once they break into his line of sight, man, it's go time, and so they can make some pretty unbelievable catches. I think Fitch has not even hit their peak yet. I think they're just getting into stride. I think once Fitch does hit their peak, they're going to be very, very good.
I mean, there's a lot of people that thought that this schedule could be murderer's row for Austintown Fitch, especially in the early going. And they're proving that last year wasn't just a fluke. And you said it already. Warren Harding is the team that has the X on their chest when it comes to Austintown Fitch. There's some unfinished business, so to speak, with the Falcons when it comes to that. Do you think that as a football team and knowing this Fitch team like you do you think that could be something where a team could sneak up on them between points 1 and 10 as they're trying to get to those Raiders?
It can if they're looking too far ahead at the Raiders. But you know what? Coach Parker does a tremendous job of keeping his guys in the moment focused right now. Whether they're playing a team that's a Division 4 team or a Division 1 team, it doesn't matter. That he's going to get these guys to run through a wall for him because he wants these guys ready, prepared, and treating it like this is the state championship game against the best freaking team in Ohio. And that's exactly how the Falcons need to play. And you see that attitude change over the years too. And you saw that once Coach Parker kind of started utilizing his schemes and his culture and his ideologies into the Austintown program, is that they got a lot tougher and they got a lot mentally tougher when they come into these matchups. Now it's no longer like looking at Big Brother when you have to play these D1 teams and these teams up from Cleveland and Akron. Now you're looking at it like you could hang with these teams and you could hang with some of the best in the area again. And it's been a couple of years since the Falcons fans and the Falcon faithful get to feel like that or have had a chance to feel like that. But it's just nice too. And I think the biggest thing is you can't doubt what TJ Parker's doing. One loss ever in his career. He has never lost a regular season game with the Falcons. He's been absolutely tremendous at coaching schemes. He's always risky too. Is the best thing about him is that he thinks outside the box a lot, and you never know when the Falcons are pulling a trick play out of their playbook.
No, and you do it so well of giving these kids their credit, and obviously Coach Parker, but Coach will always tell you, TJ will always point to, number one, his kids and his staff. And he has put together just a great staff around him that everybody's bought in. Everybody's bought into, feed the nest. And, what I love about TJ is that he has it top down. He has it from the seniors this year all the way down into their junior programs. And he shows up and he wants everybody buying into this program from the time that you're a born baby in Austintown all the way to when you're a senior year at Fitch, and hopefully you're on playing another sport. And if he has anything to do with it, it's going to be football. So talk about the buy-in to Coach Parker around the area, and especially in Austintown, for what they're doing on a week-to-week basis. You said it. The guy hasn't lost in the regular season yet. There's something to be said for that.
Yeah, there is something to be said for it. And there's something to be said for Austintown putting the right guy in the right position and having another great leader in the Austintown area for the youth sports programs. And we talk about it too. Girls sports as well. Volleyball, soccer, they have a great upbringing. The baseball team is huge there too. Basketball is starting to come along a little bit as well. But football, it's another one of those programs where Coach Parker, like you said, these coaches are taking it from the top down, and they want to have early involvement because they know how important getting the youth involved in a sport early so they can get passionate, they can fall in love with it, and try to build up that program through the years. That's part of what makes a successful program a program and not just a team. Successful teams, they come and go. You'll see them, they'll last for a year, maybe 2 seasons before they finally fade away. And then, you have to go through the rebuilding phase. Just build that successful program. It starts with the youth. You have to start looking at your class of 2034 right now and start planning for it if you want to plan for the future. But it really is. You have to look at the future, and you have to be future minded as well as being present-minded, looking at a week-to-week basis, because you still need to win a football game each week, but you still need to think future-wise. It's a very hard job, but I think Coach Parker does a tremendous job at it.
Austintown Fitch wins 42-28 over the Canton McKinley Bulldogs. We'll wrap that one up, and let's talk about, my goodness, let's talk about a team that has gone back-to-back 50-point games here in weeks 1 and 2. Offensive coordinator Johnny DeSantis has got to be feeling like he's playing Xbox up in that booth, because Ursuline gets a big win, 50-7 over Hickory. They go over the Pennsylvania line to really just flex their muscles again and show people that was not a fluke in week 1. Talk about how fun it must be to watch this offense go to work, and the defense shows up only giving up 7 this week.
Yeah, and that was the biggest thing. And that was the biggest thing I said Friday and what I wanted to see. I picked Ursuline to win, but I wanted to see that improvement on defense from Ursuline. And boy, did they show up, and they showed up big time. And, going up against a pretty good team in Hickory over there in PA, they're usually solid year to year. But boy, oh boy, did Ursuline make them look like little brother when they went over to that PA line. And Ursuline proving once again why they're going to be one of these premier teams in D4. And I don't know who might stop them this year, DJ, because beating Bishop Hartley week 1 the way they did in the fashion they did, the biggest question, and everybody was pointing it out, and they already had their excuse for why they weren't going to do it, their defense. Well, they gave up 58 points. It was their defense. That's going to be their downfall. Well, week 2, they responded, and that's the biggest thing. When you find a kink in Ursuline's armor, you're only going to make them stronger. So that's you got to take away from that going into the regular season. You're game planning to find a weakness, but once you find a weakness, Reardon's going to have that weakness already patched up by next time, and now they're going to be even stronger going into it. This is a team that's scary because of their ability to just keep getting stronger throughout the season, and a team that hasn't even peaked yet, and a team that is going out there putting up 50-point games left and right.
Yeah, and I think what's scarier is most teams now in week 2 going into week 3 are looking at their opponents knowing what they're capable of, right? These coaches are saying, okay, well, we know that our quarterback can do this, our running back can do this, our defense is the one that we got to protect against, because most schemes are defensive. Let's just be honest, right? If we score more points than they do, if we stop them, one more time than they stop us, we're going to win this ball game. However, Ursuline does such a good job from a coaching staff perspective of making their guys better, looking at what they do really well on film, looking what they need to work on film, and getting it done week to week. Dan Reardon has continued to be one of the best in the business when it comes to getting his guys ready for the next week, advancing kind of the chains downfield, if you think about it, because my goodness, their offense got better. Didn't score as many points, but when you score 62 points, that's some big shoes to fill from going from week 1 to week 2. So they put up 50, and like you said, I don't think they've peaked. I think their defense is going to get stronger every single week, and that's the scariest part about it, Ty.
Yeah, that is a scary part about Ursuline. And you know what? When you have Brady Shannon behind center, it makes a lot of things easier. You want to talk premier quarterbacks in the area, you can't look far further than Shannon. And the thing I love about Coach Reardon, I like to call him the professor, because he does everything by the book. He's not a big motto guy. He's not a big rah-rah, let's get in your face guy. He's very much he's a quiet guy. He's very much by the book. He runs schemes, but he's very smart. He's a very good football mind. And, he's perfect for that Ursuline, that team that is all about discipline on the field. And that is exactly what Coach Reardon is. And the game plans he has and the weapons he has now, we talk about Kylan Irving being a huge weapon. Dean Boyd is an animal too, tight end, wide receiver. Let's put it as that, as he's just a monster at wide receiver too. You have all these weapons now that are developed that Brady Shannon can throw to. All these guys are at their peak level of performance in their high school career right now. And I think it's a heck of a time to be an Irish fan.
50-7, the final over in Hickory on Friday night. The Irish go to 2-0 on the season, and we'll have more coverage what awaits them here this week here on YSN, ysnlive.com. All right, third game I want to talk about, Boardman and Cheney. This one ended 16-12 in Boardman's favor, but this is a game that Boardman had they dictated the tempo, and then all of a sudden Cheney out of nowhere, Drew Galt comes up, a sophomore quarterback filling in for Jason Hewlett, and my guy just made it a game. Cheney rallied around the loss of one of their family members, the loss of their quarterback. They had so much to rally around on Friday night. They did it. They come up a little bit short, but I think they've put themselves on the map here, Ty, as a team to not sleep on.
Yeah, absolutely not. And if there's one thing the Cheney Cowboys know, it's dealing with adversity. And if Coach Emil can do anything, he can deal with adversity, and he can get his boys ready to deal with adversity. I think one of the best coaches in the area as far as building a program and just truly from the top down using the resources he has to build a program. I think Coach Emil is doing a phenomenal job over there in Cheney. But going into this game as well, what we saw from Cheney and what we're seeing from Andrew Galt is really he's starting to develop at a rapid pace. He kind of came into that Fitch game, and you got to remember this came in the first quarter, so he kind of got thrown deer in the headlights. So there was a little bit of struggles going on, and as you could expect, a sophomore quarterback getting thrown against a D2 defense that is set to be one of the better teams in the area. He had his struggles, but we saw in that fourth quarter he's starting to get a lot more crisper with his passes against Fitch. He was starting to put together drives, a couple of drop passes that didn't help too. That probably would have helped him finish a couple of drives in some points against the Falcons, but we saw him develop, and we're seeing, I think, that continuation of that development against another tough opponent in a Boardman team. Once they start having to play against these Steel Valley teams, the Cardinal Moonies and the East, and even the Ursulines of the world, you better watch out playing this Cheney Cowboy team because they're coming and they have a lot of speed on that team. And when I tell you all these guys, when they turn the jet engines on, I don't know if there's many guys in the area that can catch them.
No, they're very athletic and they're built to last. And that's the big thing about Cheney is Coach Emil has them coached up, ready to go. These guys, when they learn how to win, and that is, yes, to me, that's something you absolutely have to learn how to do. You have to learn how to win and learn not to just play, not to lose. These guys are ready. They're right on that verge because they are right there. They had opportunities during that game, but just could not pull through. On the other side, on the flip side of that tie, Boardman, a team that everybody was writing off at the beginning of the season. Terrence Thomas was out injured. They've got a mash unit of people that are out for the season or out for the majority of the season. They're 2-0. They're 2-0. This is a team that when you talk about undefeated teams in the area, Boardman is alphabetically at the top of that list. So does it surprise you with Seth Antrim coming in, a brand new coach, starting to sound like another team we talked about last year that whatever it took to get the job done, they did. Seth Antrim, a local guy here from Columbiana County, a Crestview graduate, coaches in Jackson, North Carolina, coaches, in Cheney, and now is the head coach of the Boardman Spartans. Does this surprise you that he's got his guys playing extremely hard for him? And, can he keep this up for 10 weeks, 16 weeks?
Yeah, I think, I think he can. I really do. And, some pieces he has there, guys like Sean O'Horo are really making strides and really helping out a Boardman offense that really needs it right now. And O'Horo has been huge for them going forward. And, Seth Antrim's done a great job, I think, early on with this Boardman team. And this is a team Boardman-wise, because we know when Fitch and Boardman plays, you throw records out the window. But this is one of those Boardman teams, knowing that the Falcons have to play Boardman at the end of the season. They're probably worried about this one, and I would be as well. This is a team that I think is on the up and up in the AAC, and I think they're going to be making big strides to come back. Once some of these guys get healthy, I think there's a couple guys that are going to be due back this season, actually. So they might get a influx of some guys towards the end of the season. But I think the biggest question I just have for Boardman is, can they keep getting better week to week? I think we saw it from week 1 to week 2. They certainly did. They competed. They weren't in firm control the whole time. They had to deal with a little bit of adversity, had to deal with a response from Cheney and try to withhold it and thwart the response from Cheney. And they did. They do a great job defensively. They hold on. They win the game. Let me just keep seeing these improvements from Boardman. And I think if they keep making those improvements, sooner or later, everyone's going to buy in and believe in them.
I'm with you. And if we have the Coco's Pizza Coaches Corner player profiles coming up tomorrow night, I believe, with Steve Leslie live from Coco's Pizza in Boardman. So Spartan Nation, show up, support one of your very own and Steve Coca. And they have the great pizza there. Their apps are amazing. And you can sit back and listen to Coach Antrim talk about this team. And he's always exciting to listen to. So that's going to come up tomorrow. Well, and if you can't make it out there, we'll have it for you here on your sports network. All right, Ty, some teams I want to talk about now that maybe didn't have the greatest week 1, but the bounce back was impressive. When you look at a team like East Liverpool, a team that's built on being physical, a team that is so much rich tradition in their history of football programs and yesterday's lore and all of that, they get spanked the first week. They come back strong the second week. East Liverpool wins 35-14 over Indian Creek, which there's started to become a little bit of a rivalry there with Indian Creek. you're 2 weeks away now. You play Beaver Local in week 4. If you're East Liverpool, is week 2 the where we saw them right the ship a little bit, Ty, as you work towards the rest of the season, so to speak?
I think we did. I think East Liverpool, honestly, and I talked about this too on Friday. The 3 teams we cover with YSN from the Buckeye 8 is East Liverpool, Beaver Local, and Edison. And Edison, we know, unfortunately, was unable to get their game off this week. Beaver Local with the loss. So this was a chance for East Liverpool, one of these teams we said in the Buckeye 8, to take that next stride, because both of them 0-1 in Beaver Local and East Liverpool. And East Liverpool is the one who planted the flag firmly, got out there and got that win against an Indian Creek team. One that I think, honestly, is usually a solid team year to year, too. So, I mean, a big win, I think, against Indian Creek. We all know we're looking ahead to that week 4 matchup with Beaver Local. But honestly, I think what we're seeing, guys like Toothman and guys like Eric Williams, this is just a very athletic East Liverpool team. And that's the fun thing about it, is that when you have athletes, it can just make things a little bit easier. They might not be the most skilled positions on football, but if you could hand them the ball and they could run, that's pretty much all you need to do in certain scenarios. But I mean, they have some great athletes over there in East Liverpool. I think Toothman is he's making strides. I think he's going to keep getting better as the season goes along. And overall, I think with this team and with this win, I think it's huge for them momentum wise going forward. And I think it's just what they needed going forward.
And of course, don't forget about that anchor on the front line. You got Mason Ludwig, just a junior, and he's graded out to be one of the best linemen in the state of Ohio, getting all kinds of looks from all over the place, Big Ten schools, and hopefully Ohio State keeps their eye on him as well. All right, another team, actually a game filled with teams in Columbiana and McDonald. This, to me, was the surprise of the night. Columbiana, their roster numbers are down a little bit, but that's not stopping Coach Spate from running the same program he has for so many years, and they walk out with a 36-20. Just, I don't want to call it surprising, but I think they opened a lot of eyes on Friday night against the McDonald Blue Devils.
I think they did as well. And you know what? Columbiana is one of those teams that I was looking at last week. And I think they lost 50-27 last week, but they looked like they were right there offensively, and they looked like they had to figure it out. And it was just about the defense. If they could figure out it defensively, I thought they would be fine, because what they have on offense too, and Kokanger and then Deering is all you really need on offense. You got that 1-2 punch. Deering is an electric wide receiver, and Kokanger behind center, man, he can make things go for the Columbiana Clippers. And I think going forward, I think that's really the biggest thing, is can you rely on these guys to carry you to more victories? And you know what, Columbiana, honestly, what we saw, I think, was them showing that they can compete with these teams, and they can bounce back, and they can respond, and that Kokinger can be that guy on offense that can lead you to victory. And you know what? I think they showcase that. Columbiana might be a team to watch going into this season.
I think that, Ty, you're spot on. When you look at what Columbiana did in week 1, they started off with the lead against McDonald. It was a pick 6 all the way to the house, and then they ran into Vinny Ballone. And I think a lot of people are going to have problems with a Vinny Ballone-led offense this season. I think Louisville is going to surprise a lot of people. We'll talk about them in just a little bit. But Columbiana gets that big win, evens their record at 1-1 here early on in this season. And I think there's a lot of question marks around McDonald now. And I think people are wondering and now are very curious to see how the Blue Devils are going to get their season back here down 0-2. So we will take a break. When we come back, still a lot to unpack from Friday night and Saturday as well, because we had 3 games on Saturday, and we have the head coach of the Sebring Trojans here in the studio later on in the show, probably I want to say about 12:45, so about 15 minutes away, and we will talk about their opening win against Ashtabula St. John's. All that and more when we return on Running Point, presented by Greenwood Chevrolet, right here on YSN.
Ah, the details. Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods is one fine ride. Perfect cornering, superb handling, sporty and stylish, power to spare, plus awesome mileage. Yeah, jaw-droppingly beautiful lines and well appointed with luxurious trim. Put more oomph in your life. and start beholding the molding. Find your home's fine hardwood at BairdBrothers.com.
Planning a project around your home or rental property? Trust the electrical service to the local experts with 62 years of serving the Mahoning Valley. Joe Dickey Electric is your local go-to source for responsive, reliable residential electrical work. From everyday maintenance and repairs to new installations, electrical upgrades, and safety inspections, no job is too big or too small. Call Joe Dickey Electric today, 800-549-3976, or visit DickeyElectric.com. That's DickeyElectric.com.
For heating, cooling, and indoor air quality, the Mahoning Valley trusts MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning, offering worry-free repair, service, and installation. Call MP Vivo today for a free estimate.
MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning. We're your energy-efficient experts.
Hi everyone, this is DJ Yoakley with Your Sports Network. We appreciate your support of YSN and welcome you to the YSN family. Our broadcast streams are brought to you live at no cost to you by sponsors that are local to this community. Without the vision and generosity of our sponsors and partners, we would not be able to bring this game to you today. So please support the great businesses and leaders that are making this game possible. And if you're a business in need of great advertising and sponsorship opportunities, feel free to head over to our site for more information on the right fit for you. We are local, we are loyal, and we are live. We are YSN.
News doesn't stop after the sun goes down. Sometimes you just have to hustle to get it. At 21 News, no matter how far it is, no matter what it takes to get there, we're working to bring you the best stories and the freshest content at 11 p.m. with the context and clarity that makes it worth staying up for, no matter what time it is. 21 News at 11 with me, Aaron Simonek, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 11, news that's worth your time.
WRS Wealth Advisors is the area's premier wealth and retirement specialist. With our combined 70 years experience and comprehensive wealth strategy, we assist our clients attain their goals. Call 330-965-0370 to learn more about our individual and corporate financial planning services, or visit WRSWealthAdvisors.com. Good luck, athletes!
At Greenwood Chevrolet, we go the extra mile for you
by finding you the right vehicle at the right price,
and by being with you for every mile of your journey.
Now, we're going the extra mile for you with an additional $1,500 on your trade, only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
All right, sorry about that. We had, again, a lot of news coming into the newsroom right now based on some situations. Unfortunate, just real unfortunate. We're not going to touch it. We're not going to touch it because that's not what we do. We're all positive here, and we're all about the platforms and making sure that all the news is good news here on the network. Ty?
We got plenty of good news to talk about from this Friday, too.
Especially if you're a Springfield fan. You were on pins and needles the entire night if you're the Springfield Tigers coming off a loss against South Range. You didn't know what was going to happen. You didn't know what team was going to show up because, hey, it had been almost 3 years since you lost your last regular season game, 2018, if I'm not mistaken. So if you look at this, how were the Springfield Tigers going to respond going into week 2? Well, they played a really good Brookfield team, and I just have to admit, Ty, how good would that have been for Brookfield's coach? 100th win, beating a team that's state ranked in your house. You almost had it. It was within your grasp. You had the brass ring, and then Bo Brungard once again steps up and turns into the man that we expect him to be, that he has been. And again, you talk about guys that haven't scratched the surface this year. My guy, Bo, 21, he is just ready to go again. I think he's going to take that loss personally in week 1. He steps up and a big win against Brookfield here in week 2 in the waning moments of the game. Ty, how did you like that game?
I like that game a lot. You know what? It was a challenge I issued to Springfield because you go down 0-2 to start. you're the state runner-up the last 2 years. There's a lot of eyebrows raised, and they're looking at you. It's not a must-win game, and it's not the end of the season, but it's like you're panicking a little bit then. But you know what? You're going into a very good Brookfield team, and a Brookfield team that I'm still very high on, and I think Brookfield is still going to be super competitive in their MVAC division. But I think this was a game that Springfield needed to win. It was a game because you're going to face a Division III team now in this week. And so Springfield had the potential of going to face 3 divisions up, down 0-2. That is a scary thought if you're a Tigers fan, especially talking seeding playoff-wise. But this is a game where Bo Brungard needed to step up. The senior-led quarterback, he stepped up in a big way. And you know what? If there's anything that gives you confidence if you're a Tigers fan, showing that those close games now, they're finishing them, because we're so used to the Tigers the last 2 years. These games that they play, they blow teams out. They blow teams out. They blow teams out. They're such a blowout team. It gives you confidence when they have to play those close ones, when they come out on top of those.
Springfield wins 20-14. Man, Brookfield is impressive. And you know they're frustrated after that loss because they knew they had it. And Springfield, a sigh and I guess you exhale on that. You say, okay, we got through. We're back to even, 1-1, new season, new start. You focus on week 3. So kudos to Springfield on a great game. They kept their composure the entire time. But does that really surprise you when you have a coach like Sean Guerrero that says, hey, we've been in a close game a time or two. And after what they've done in the last 2-3 seasons, Ty, you have to admit that, you know, they're going to have the X on their back. They're going to have the target square on their shoulders. And again, Springfield able to survive this one and goes to 1-1 on the season. Another game we want to talk about, another team we're still trying to figure out, really 2 of them. We talked about Columbiana. We talked about McDonald. There's 2 teams that are still trying to find their sea legs here. Louisville and Poland doing battle on Friday night. Poland pulls out a 21-13 victory over the Leopards. And the Leopards did not look crisp at all, but they know that what they're capable of playing. But Poland is, I got to think that they're going to hang their hat on the defense once again, led by Christian Colosimo. You know, he's a guy that's not going to get much in the way of looks offensively this year, as it seems so far. But that could just be Coach Pavlansky saying, hey, we're going to keep all of his tape until we at least enter the NE8. It's part of our schedule. But when you look at this, Ty, there is a ton of talent on both these teams. It's just like hard to find right now. I can't describe it.
Yeah. I mean, this team, both of these teams going into this game too, both Louisville and Poland were 0-1 too. So this felt like a game you wanted to win, because you don't want to start out the season 0-2. And you know, this is a team that both teams had tremendous size, so we knew it was going to be an avalanche and an earthquake. I personally like that tight end AJ Ligenhole over there at Louisville. I think he's very impressive. I think he's going to be dynamic for them going forward. But you know what? I think, like you said, both these teams are going to be hanging their hats on having the size and having defenses, and both of them have really good defenses. You saw 21-13, Poland wins it. It was a very close game, very low scoring game, and that's exactly what it's going to be for Poland. It's hanging your heads on that front 7 of that defense, I think, is what's going to make or break Poland's season. And you saw they weren't as crisp, I think, week 1 versus Canfield, and I think they could be better. And I think that's the biggest thing, is Poland's going to continue to improve on defense as their season gets on. But you got to also remember what the Poland Bulldogs did last season. That week 1 loss to South Range, and then what did they do after that? They started tearing through the rest of their schedule, finished the season 5-1 in a 6-game schedule, and they had a solid spot in the playoffs, and they ran into a buzzsaw. But they finally, I mean, they were able to put it together, and I think that's exactly what we're seeing from the Poland Bulldogs now. And you talk about their front 7 on defense. I mean, you talk about just the size of the guys they have. You talk about Christian Colosimo. You talk about Jack Fulton at defensive back. You talk about Milovsky at defensive line, and Parker at defensive line too. You got 2 sizable guys too on that line. It just, that front 7 is so big for that Poland defense, and I think that's what's going to carry them and make or break how successful they'll be this season.
Yeah, trying to figure out really who they are right now, and it's a different look than last year. You still have a lot of your guys coming back, but you did lose a few if you're Poland, and obviously you're in a new situation as a head coach, and Coach Pavlansky just trying to figure out if some of your stuff that you did at Lakeview is going to work with the Poland Bulldogs this year. So I'm interested to find that out. I'm also interested about Louisville. My goodness. I mean, so much talent there. It's just the puzzle of figuring it out, putting the guys in the right places to be successful. And again, it's not easy going up like a team like Poland because their defense has been outstanding. Colosimo hits like a man, and and the turnovers has been an issue in the early going for Louisville. So we'll see what the Leopards are made of. But we are going to bring in Coach Seidel. We're going to call it an Omaha, if you will, as we bring in Coach. See if I can bring this up. Hang in. Where's that split screen? There it is. All right. So there we go. There you see Coach Seidel with us here on Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown, the presenting sponsor right here on Running Point on your sports network. Coach, an interesting game on Saturday. Your first game of the season, and you finally got to play, which is something that you couldn't be more excited about, but you had to play on a Saturday, so that extra day goes into it, but you got the victory, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, that is all that matters at the end of the day. And speaking of those Omahas, I was getting used to calling those on Friday nights with you guys. A lot of fun doing the show with Steve and Mike, and just fun to be here and enjoying Friday night football. But you're right. It was, it was exciting to finally get to play, obviously, with week 1 being canceled on us. I know the boys were really looking forward to hitting somebody in a different colored uniform for a while. But I thought we did some good things. There's obviously things to clean up, as there always are in early season games. But the boys they gritted it out and dealt with the heat that was up there. I think it was over 100 degrees on the turf at the start of the game, and got the W, which is all that matters.
So when you look at that, a lot of prep for obviously for Letonia for week 1. That game doesn't happen. A lot of disappointment, obviously. Yep. That's a game that has been played for almost, 70 years, something like that?
Yeah, it's up over 75 now. I think it's heading towards 80. Still putting together some of the history stuff and trying to find. So the first year that I can find is 1932 that they played each other, and we're missing a little bit from some of the years from 1916 to 1931. So still working on getting the microfilms out and checking in on some of that, but it's definitely been played over 75 times.
You were one of the first coaches that had to throw everything away,
yes.
that first week. What was that like from your standpoint? Did it just feel like a continuation of last season? And how quickly did you start preparing for Ashtabula St. John?
Yeah, it definitely felt like a little bit of a continuation from last year. We had kind of heard some rumors and rumblings on Monday, Tuesday, right around in that time frame that maybe there was potentially an issue. And then I didn't get word until I think it was early Thursday that the game was for sure canceled. And so, immediately we got together with our guys. We told them, hey, look, here's the situation. Obviously, we're just going to play the cards that are dealt to us, no matter what they are. And so right away, we turned our focus and attention to St. John because that's a much improved football team over last year. And they do a lot of different things than what Letonia does. We went from preparing for 2 tight ends and some buck sweep and some counters and some traps to looking at a 2x2 spread formation.
So when you look at this, you started planning for these guys almost 2 weeks ahead of time.
Yes.
For this game, practicing up to it. We talk, kind of jokingly about using the garbage can sometimes and stuff like that. When your kids finally got onto the field, they got to suit up, they got to wear the purple, the gold. Did you feel like this is going to be a different season for you?
I've kind of had that feeling throughout camp and getting ready. We've got more team speed than I can ever remember us having, just at every position. And then, the big question mark for me was, how's our offensive and defensive lines going to hold up? Are we going to be able to do the things that we need to do? Because that's a smaller group for us this year. We're usually used to having about, 8 to 10 offensive, defensive linemen that we can kind of rotate through. And this year we're at a point where we've got, 7, 8, maybe 9 that we can rotate through there comfortably. So we knew that we were going to face some different challenges with the roster construction this year.
So you lose some guys last year that were big contributors for you. You and I always talk about Cody Horning being that guy, Dylan Johnson as well. I mean, you lose some guys, but you also have some situations that happen for you that are some new Trojans in the locker room, but you got the Frederick boys.
That's right.
And that's really, at the end of the day, that's all that matters, because those guys are the epitome of Sebring Trojan football.
They really are. And, you know, any conversation about Sebring football right now starts and ends with knowing Elijah Frederick. They're the heartbeat of our team. They're 2-year captains. They're, you know, the list just goes on and on. Elijah was second team All-Ohio at running back last year. Noah felt like he might have been a little bit slighted. You know, the twin brother syndrome. I got to hear about who's older in practice every day and who's the faster kid. But the level of competition that they have with each other just makes them that much better every single week. And I think one of the areas that I've seen tremendous growth in both of them is just their maturity from last year to this year. I was telling you kind of off the air that over at Spire, Noah was kind of having a big day. He had 176 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. You know, he just kind of went off. And in years past, Elijah would have felt a little bit jealous about that. And I kept saying to Elijah, hey, your time's coming. You're going to hit a big one. You're going to have a big game. And finally, he just came over to me and he goes, Coach, stop, man. I'm fine. It's his night. My night will come, but I'm going to block my butt off for him tonight.
That's what you want, not only in a teammate, but man, if that's for your family, that's
absolutely,
that's huge, because things can get competitive, especially when you're 17, 18 years old and you're trying to find yourself.
Sure.
Right. You're trying to get yours at 17, 18, because there's scholarships on the line. There's opportunities on the line to play at the next level, of course. As a coach, as a man, as a leader, when he came over to you and said that, what was the feeling for you?
That was a proud moment for me. And, you know, Saturday, obviously, we had a couple of proud moments. And I think that, you know, between that one and then the picture that kind of went viral of Noah cleaning up the locker room after the game, you know, those are the little things that, you know, we realize as coaches we're teaching life lessons, not just football lessons. And when you see something like that, you start to think, hey, I don't know if I played any kind of role in any of that happening, but if I did, I'm really proud of those things.
So you get the win against Ashtabula St. John, 1-0 on the season. Now there's a lot of people with it, and there's a lot of stuff going around. The rumor mill is flowing. Talk to me about what the plan is to get that 10th game in as of right now.
Yeah, so a little bit of a unique situation, and obviously with expanded playoffs this year, everybody's got week 11 kind of circled on their calendar. In fact, for us as a team, you know, it's one of our team goals that we've got up on the wall in our locker room. After everything we do, we finish with the players do 11 push-ups and breaking down playoffs on 3. You know, we want to be the first team in school history to do that. It's kind of been our mantra since I got there 2 years ago. But the tentative plan right now is sort of like last year, where teams were allowed to complete a 10-game regular season schedule even once they were in or out of the playoffs or whatever happened. So that Letonia game has been tentatively scheduled for when both teams are eliminated from the playoffs. The OHSAA kind of gave approval for that, and it's a little bit of a funky scenario. I don't know that we necessarily would have done that with anybody but Letonia, because of the significance and importance of that game to us.
So obviously the playoffs are first and foremost in your focus. That's it. That's in your sights right now. That's what you want to do. You want to know. So when you, Darren Miller chiming in saying, there's nothing like taking the first team in school history to playoffs. And he knows that because he was part of the coaching staff on that East Palestine team in 2002.
He definitely was. And, you know, that's something that we're really hoping to get, and we're really hoping to get a taste of. We want our kids to just kind of feed off of that. And, you know, while I say that that's a goal for us, obviously we're taking things 1 week at a time, 1 game at a time. After the game on Saturday, I said to the boys in the huddle post game, hey, what's Matthews? And they said, next. That's it.
So there you go. I mean, Matthews, another team, and they've gotten better as well.
Yeah, I was, you know, breaking down film over the weekend a little bit. Obviously, Saturday night late, I was able to get the exchange taking place on Huddle, and I came away and I thought, man, much improved Matthews roster. Coach Bourne's doing a heck of a job over there with the boys. Isaiah Muno, the quarterback, looked really good on tape. He does a lot of things really, really well, whether it's extending the play with his legs. Honestly, when I looked at the film, I thought, they look a lot like Louisville's going to look to us later on in the season.
Oh, really?
Maybe not quite there.
Okay.
But just the way that they do some of the things that they do, with Muno, they're looking to do some of the similar things that Louisville's doing with Boulogne, where they're moving him around in the pocket. He can extend the play with his legs. The key difference, I think, honestly, Matthews has a heck of a running back in Corey Lilly, number 32 on the roster there for him. He does a very nice job of running the ball hard. And you can tell that he's got some of those aggressive tendencies that we all like as football coaches, because he's looking to run you over. He's not looking to run around you.
Now, you and I go back and forth off the air,
Yep.
obviously, because we work together. And we talk about the coach speak. We talk about all that stuff. So without the coach speak, talk to me straight up. So last year, everybody had a chance to make the playoffs. You guys decided we're not going to do it.
Yes.
We're going to go play a different team every week and fill our schedule that way. If your team makes the playoffs, let's say that you're a 16 seed.
Yep.
Okay, just for argument, you're playing a 1 seed. Do you go or do you take the waiver and say, hey, we're not going to play. I don't want my guys getting hurt, because that number 1 seed could be
You're right.
a Warren JFK.
Well, and there's a lot of talented teams in our region. Our 25 is a really talented region this year, with teams like JFK and Lucas and Dalton in there, and Southern makes an appearance back in D7 or 25 this year. And, I know that Coach Wright's always got those boys fired up and ready to play. But when we talked about this last year, when we sat down as a team and we said, hey, here's the opportunity that's in front of us. And I didn't give them my thoughts right off the bat. I wanted to hear their thoughts first. And their initial thoughts were, Coach, as a team, we're not there yet.
Yeah.
We can benefit more from not going into the playoffs and taking teams that are a little more similarly matched to us. It was still a growth year for us. And so what we promised to each other at that point was, this year, if there was an opportunity and we earned it, and that was a big thing that we talked to each other about a lot all last season, was we want to earn the first time we go. If there's an opportunity and we earn the opportunity, we will not pass on that opportunity. We will absolutely take it, no matter who it is. We're not afraid to play anybody. We just want to do what's right last year by our players, by our program, to kind of build things towards where we're hoping to go.
So the OHSA coming down and saying you don't necessarily need 8 games anymore. You need 5 games. You and I have our thoughts on where we think that'll end up. If it turns into a situation where everybody gets in the playoffs again, do you go?
I think we do this year. I think that, the team dynamics are a little bit different this year. Obviously, 11 seniors on this squad, guys that have been into the program for a couple years. Last year, we had quite a few players that were making their first appearance in high school football, and even several that were making their first ever appearance in football. That's one of the challenges that we've had at Sebring with not being able to field a junior high team in the last few years, is trying to build to that point where we've got kids with experience, and we do now.
We're here with Coach Matt Seidel of the Sebring Trojans, the 1-0 Sebring Trojans. We're going to call it Coach's Corner, because this is your guy that doesn't have a whole lot of time on his hands. So when you sit here and you put 10, 15 minutes in, we're going to make sure that we make it count. So this is Coach's Corner, episode 1 of the 2021 season with Matt Seidel. Coach, a couple off the topic questions, off the football field. So you're a either or guy, and we like to play Would You Rather a lot. So my question for you is, what is the number 1 dessert in the I know you don't like sweets a whole lot. What is the number 1 dessert in the Seidel home?
So I'm not big on sweets. However, I am an ice cream guy.
Okay.
I'm pretty vanilla when it comes to ice cream, though.
Don't say vanilla.
I am a vanilla ice cream guy, occasionally with some toppings, but I love to hit up Dairy Queen and get a Blizzard here and there, but I'm more of a fruit in my ice cream guy than I am like chocolate syrup or caramel syrup or anything like that.
All right, so
my go-to is the banana split Blizzard.
I knew it. I was just going to ask you, is that the go-to? All right, so if you just have is it vanilla bean, French vanilla? Is it just, or any vanilla?
Really any of the vanillas. I've just never really been much of a chocolate person.
Yep.
Every girlfriend I've ever had has hated that about me or loved it about me, because then they get
it all.
the chocolate.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my stance on sweets.
That's the feather in the cap of my wife as well. I'm more of a vanilla guy myself, and she's like, all right, I'll just keep buying chocolate.
There you go.
Well, that's why I get the cherry Pepsi, because she hates anything cherry. So, all right. And finally, I mean, you're a guy that, you know, obviously very close to the program here at YSN. You're a sales director, a guy that bleeds it. How has it been for you to kind of see how YSN runs from the inside out, as opposed to necessarily how we've had in the past, which is just looking in and admiring the program, the same as we do with you, from afar?
Yeah, I think, you know, there was always that mutual admiration back and forth. And to be able to come on the inside has just given me a whole new perspective and respect for the work that our guys do every day, whether it's the guys that are out in the field calling the games, as I had an opportunity to take part in some of that, or, you know, honestly, the guys doing the audible call. The last 2 weeks, I've had the opportunity to kind of sit in the hot seat over there and be producing the show as we kind of go. And, you know, things are rolling fast and furious in here. There's Omahas coming all over the place, and, you know, just trying to pop around it and get the fans what they deserve, which is, you know, the best coverage in the area.
Last question for you. If Jeff Bezos had 1 year of eligibility left, would you take him on your team?
Jeff could play, let's see, I would probably play Jeff this year at guard. And we would hope for that, you know, famous clip penalty that saves the game.
Oh my goodness. Coach Seidel, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you. Maybe we'll take a break and get you talking about a few other teams. There were some awesome games that we still have to go over with Ty. We'll bring him back in the house right after this break, right here on Running Point, presented by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
New things happen all day. Some are good, some not so good. In today's complicated world, while you're busy working, playing, and living life, we're busy helping you make sense of the day's news. And there's only one place where it comes together with clarity, context, and accountability. It's 21 News at 6 with me, Madison Tromler, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 6. It's what the day's news really means to you.
Welcome home to a home made homier with Baird Brothers Fine Hardwoods. Inspiration starts at BairdBrothers.com and is turned into reality when high-quality hardwoods are delivered right to your home. Baird Brothers has the latest design trends, shiplap and skinny lap interior siding, antique oak rustic flooring, and, well, you'll find them all at BairdBrothers.com. Ordered easily, delivered conveniently, enjoyed comfortably. BairdBrothers.com.
WRS Wealth Advisors, the area's premier wealth and retirement specialists. Located on South Avenue in Boardman.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, we go the extra mile for you.
By finding you the right vehicle at the right price.
By giving you confidence in your vehicle with a Greenwood Advantage warranty.
By guaranteeing you financing,
regardless of your situation or credit history.
And by being with you for every mile of your journey.
Now, we're going the extra mile for you with an additional $1,500 on your trade, plus the best selection of new and used vehicles in the area.
Visit greenwoodchevrolet.com and tell us how we can go the extra mile for you.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
Jimmy Sudman here, Director of Isle, Purple Cat, and Golden String. We are happy to support YSN and 2 of my favorite people, Scotty Mincher and Super Dave O'Malley. We are an agency that provides services for adults with disabilities. We infuse humor, passion, and joy into their lives. If you know of any folks with disabilities that need our assistance, please contact us.
Your teams work hard and give it all they've got. Well, so does ours, because 21 Sports and YSN give you extra effort when covering local sports. 21 Sports and YSN, winning coverage of our Valley's teams.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We'll invite Ty Bartell back into the conversation here. Oh, wait, not like that. There we go. Welcome back, Ty. Thanks for hanging on there as we had our coach's corner with Coach Side. Do you have any questions for the big fella while you're sitting there?
No, I mean, the only question I had, but you guys already kind of touched on it, just what it meant leadership-wise, seeing the Frederick boys and seeing Noah Frederick staying back, cleaning things up, and what that kind of makes you feel like as a coach, and what you think you instilled into to see those leadership qualities playing off not just on the field but outside of the field as well.
For sure. That's something that we've stressed basically since my time getting there is servant leadership. And so we even do things this year, like at our team dinners on Thursday night, the captains serve the rest of the team. And then, we'll pick a couple guys and say, hey, why don't you stick around and help clean up afterwards? And, the thing I'm most proud of is that none of our kids ever act like things like that are a chore. We've got a couple of new faces like DJ alluded to, and really they've just kind of come in and become part of our fabric right away. High quality kids that were able to just kind of join the flow of what we had going.
All right, so let's get back to some of the football coverage from Friday and into Saturday. Ty, one of the interesting storylines on the week was East Palestine, Windham, Lisbon versus Mineral Ridge. Lisbon goes down. Windham goes down, and all of a sudden you've got this manufactured game that's East Palestine versus Mineral Ridge. You throw the scripts away, Coach. You talked about how you had to do it in week one, and then the outcome is Ridge wins 50-15, or I'm sorry, 50-18 over East Palestine. Palestine's home opener. It's been tough treading in East Palestine for a couple of years now, and Tony Foster continuing to put out that, hey, we're going to fight this. We're going to show up every night, be ready, be prepared. Our guys will be ready. The Bulldogs put up 18 points. Obviously not enough to get the win. But do you see East Palestine getting better each and every week?
Yeah, I definitely see the growth there. And I think that, you made a great point about Coach Foster saying, hey, we're going to fight through this. And obviously, being from Sebring, I can relate. I've been there, whether it was when I was playing or some of the years I've been coaching in the past. We had an opportunity to go down and do a 7-on-7 with East Palestine earlier this year. And the thing I stressed to Coach Foster was, hey, you guys are doing it the right way. And I know that he knows that, but sometimes it's nice to just hear it from another peer that you are on the right track. And I think, there's a lot of youth on that Palestine team, and it starts with the quarterback position and it kind of goes all the way through the roster. They've got some upperclassmen that are sprinkled in there. They're going to be fine. They're going to continue to improve week to week, and I look for them to do some things this year that surprise some people.
Yeah, Tyler Bastarkey's 2-touchdown performance here in week 2, really showing some leadership there as Owen Uriachi continues to develop as a quarterback. And I think that's the biggest thing is when you're a young freshman or a first time playing sophomore or something in that range, you need to find somebody who's been there, done that, and kind of latch onto them. And I think that's what Uriachi is doing with Bastarkey at this point.
Yeah, and I think that, there's a big effect of, an older guy kind of settling that young guy down. It's easy to, as a coach, think, hey, I can tell him. But he needs that guy in the huddle that just goes, hey, man, you're fine.
Calm it down.
You're going to be all right.
On the other side, Ty, let's talk about Mineral Ridge. They go from a week 1 loss to a 50-point performance in East Palestine on the road. Is Mineral Ridge a team that we're buying into now as we head into week 3?
I think Mineral Ridge has the potential to be that type of team. Honestly, it really kind of just depends on that offense. It could be streaky. I mean, we talk about a team last year. They were a team that averaged over 30 points per. And, I mean, you got Mark Bunch still at quarterback. And, I mean, that's kind of the big question mark with Ridge is how far can Bunch take them? We see, hey, he has the potential, the scoring potential and the passing potential to be huge. Two-way player as well, too, on defense, defensive back as well. But, yeah, I think it really depends on how far that Mineral Ridge offense can take them, and it really depends on the guy that's behind the motor, and that's Bunch.
And I got to believe that at the end of the day, it's tough to do a scout team for a left-handed quarterback if you don't have one.
Yeah, it definitely is. I'm lucky enough to have a second string guy that's a left-hander, so we're going to be in good shape for that. But Mark Bunch is a heck of a player, and I think that, you know, anybody from the area would tell you that a Brian Shaner coach team is always going to be a threat. Coach does a heck of a job. They're getting their numbers up over there. I remember not too long ago when, you know, they were fielding teams kind of like ours with 20-some kids on the roster, and, you know, they're up into the 40s this year, I believe, and you know, they're just doing things the right way. A lot of skill guys lost from last year. Obviously, Shakir Perkins, a big part of that offense last year, just a dude.
Yeah.
But I think they're bringing some young guys along, and I think that you're going to continue to see them progress as the season goes.
All right, another game that we were interested in seeing how both teams responded. Salem Quakers, just on like this offense, again, similar to Ursuline, just video game numbers, 62-35 over Beaver Local. Beaver Local is not bad.
No.
And their defense is actually quite good. So for Jackson Johnson and Blaze Exline and company to put up 62 points, they had to perform, and they did exactly that. Ty, when you look at a score like that where it's almost 100 points, it's intriguing to you from a fan perspective, but it shows exactly what we have in Salem this year.
Oh my goodness. And you know what? I called this when we did our previews that I thought these two, and X-Line and Jackson Johnson, were going to be incredible. I'm a big fan of X-Line. I mean, he's already proved it. Huge games already for X-Line this season. And Jackson Johnson, the one thing that just I can't get over, he's only a junior.
Yep.
He still has another year after this, and he can still get better, and he is already pretty damn good. And it's going to be so much fun to watch him these next few years to see how much more potential he has and how much more he can grow, because he's already doing dynamic things with that Salem offense.
I believe that X-Line got an offer to date.
I think that's right. I heard that over the weekend.
Yeah, if our sources are correct, over at the Dairy Queen.
Are those reliable?
Well, I don't know about Gary Leininger. Might not be as reliable, but he makes a hell of a blizzard.
Yes, he does.
But I would say that, you know, there's other people that have their eyes on Blaze, and he lives up to the name because my guy just sizzles the football field.
No, you're right. And, you know, I think not only in Blaze X-Line and Jackson Johnson, but those guys up front are doing a heck of a job right now for Salem.
Sure.
And you think about the fact that, you know, they're putting the ball in the air a lot. Pass blocking is completely different than run blocking. As a former offensive lineman, you love to run block because you get to fire off your stance and you get to just drive guys around. When you think of the job that they're doing in their pass blocking sets, you know, just a tip of the cap to that entire offensive line unit.
And then you look at Beaver Local, Ty, not a disappointing loss, but they're starting the year slower than Coach McKenzie would want it. McNuggies was in here with you. And what was the consensus for him? Obviously a little bit of disappointment, but you're hanging in there with one of the top scoring teams in the area.
Sure. I think Beaver Local proved themselves to a lot of people on Friday night. And that's you know, they can take punches from one of the top teams in the area and really just fire back at them. You know, I think there's things that Coach McKenzie's definitely going to want to clean up this week. Obviously, anytime you have a game, you're going to find little things to just improve on from week to week. But I think Beaver Local is a team that we're going to hear more from this season as it goes along.
Here's an interesting matchup from the other night, guys. This one was 0-0 for the longest time, and all of a sudden Crestview explodes. To me, Crestview is the best second half team in the area. I mean, 28 points all of a sudden. They get a 28-6 victory over Southern, which is a feat in itself.
It is.
Against Coach Wright, who always has his teams prepared. Coach Cusick, a little feather in his cap here as Anthony was slinging it all over the yard, and the Rebels 28 points in the second half, and they're looking pretty good.
I think you hit the nail on the head with your comment about them being a second half team. You look at that Salem game in week 1, and they actually outscored the Quakers in the second half of the game. And then you roll into this game, and you know, right from the beginning, it kind of had the feel of a heavyweight fight where they were just kind of exchanging punches right at midfield, and punts were going back and forth, as you know, Coach Dressel and Beto say, the most exciting play in football. But it just had that feel of kind of waiting for the dam to open up for one team or the other. And, you know, luckily for Crestview, it happened to be them. And man, did they look impressive in that second half. We were Omaha into them constantly.
Ty, how about you? That Crestview team's got to have you excited from that offense, from that second half perspective. You think they can get the first half figured out at some point this season?
I think so. And you know what? I thought Crestview, disappointing week 1, yeah, but they still have Anthony Cusick. And you might have lost a lot from last year, but you still have Anthony Cusick, and you still have a good weapon in Jack Yerke. And those two alone can carry an offense or get an offense through these rough patches of water while they try to catch some other guys up into the offensive scheme. I think Crestview is going to be just fine. You might see a few bumps in the road early on this season, but I think once you get these younger guys caught up to that scheme, caught up to that system, I think this is a Crestview offense that's going to be just fine. The offensive line is just going to be the thing that they're going to need to get stronger a little bit, I think, and that's going to be the big part of it going forward. I think once they have that offensive line, they have everything solid and solidified up there. I think they'll be good.
United put some points on the board the first week, and week 2, not so much. Only one touchdown to speak of. They lose 13-7 to the East Canton Hornets. This is where I think that Coach Ogilvie starts really, really missing what he had last year in Brutus and Keaton for more reasons than one. When it's your son who leaves your program and goes on to Geneva to play, obviously you're going to miss him. But, I mean, when you're looking on the fields on Friday nights and 13's not there, that's going to be trouble. The younger guys are starting to build up a little bit, but it's going to be a week-by-week case basis on in United. So United coming up short 13-7 on Friday night. Also looking a team that has really impressed me, Struthers.
Yes.
25-21 over Crestwood. The Red Devils fall short. The Wildcats are really, really impressive because I think for me, it's because they're playing such team football. There's no one name that stands out when you're talking about Struthers this year.
I'm so glad you said that because that was going to be my first comment, is the balance that's coming from Struthers this year is something that it's not necessarily always been there in the past. And you look around this year and it doesn't seem like there's any huge superstar players. It's just balanced across the board.
Yeah, Ty, when we look at that, is Struthers one of those teams to keep your eye on? Because, 5 fingers doesn't necessarily beat a fist anytime in this season.
No, I don't think so at all. And honestly, looking at Struthers this season, I think they were one of those teams that have really benefited because the gates are opened up a lot more and fans are allowed into the stands, because I think Struthers is one of those communities that really depends on their community being there. And they're a very community-driven sports team. And I think that's a big X factor, having the Struthers faithful back. But this is an offense in Struthers that has returned a lot too. I mean, I think 9 returning starters on offense. You're looking at guys all over, from tight ends to wide receivers, running backs, offensive linemen, quarterbacks. I mean, you got Greenwood that came back at quarterback. You got Calbrett at tight end. You got a few offensive linemen. I mean, this is an offense that's pretty much the same offense that we saw last year. It's just a year more experienced under all these guys' belts. And I think you're seeing the culmination of it and the culmination of all these years these guys have played together as a team.
All right, Coach, I'm going to lean on you for this one because Lowellville, another win. Vinny Ballone showing up again, 34-20 over what I think is a very underrated Campbell Memorial team.
Oh, I would agree with you. I've seen Campbell kind of grow by leaps and bounds over the last year, 2 years here. From watching them in scrimmages with Letonia and McDonald, and they're not afraid to take anybody on. And I was interested in this matchup because it was 2 teams that have a lot of guys that they're high on at the skill positions, and maybe they think that they're kind of growing right now at their offensive and defensive line positions. When you play this Louisville team, you better have some defensive backs that are able to keep up, because it's another one of those video game type offenses. Coach talks about Coach Mamela always talking about that he wants to put the ball in the air 50 plus times a game. And I think they're going to accomplish that a lot this year. So your DBs better be ready to have a night ahead of them.
All right, so we move on to the next game. Girard, a big win, the Battle of Belmont, 27-13 over Liberty. Ty, did you see this one coming? Is this one of those ones, again, there's so many teams this year that you look back and you go, I don't know what to expect. I don't know if it's just because there were 6 games last year and not a full slate, or if it's because some of those names that have been part of the yesteryear and traditionally, names you'll find on ysnlive.com for the write-ups are not there this year. But Girard with a sneaky win over a Liberty team, but you look at the scoreboard, it was convincing fashion, 27-13. Ty, what do you like about the Indians this year?
You know what? I thought Girard too. You look at that week 1 game and you think 70-35. Wow, they got blown out of the water. But what you don't realize is they hung in there with one of the best Division III teams for 3 quarters. And you got to remember, they were up on them for a little bit, and they kept on going back and forth before that 4th quarter. Everything just kind of fell apart for them. But I thought, and I called Girard to come back in this one. And I know Liberty building a great program there. That return the roar movement is fantastic over there in Liberty. I love their defense, and I think their defense is going to be really the strong point of that Leopard success over there. But I think Girard is one of those teams. They have a dynamic offense. Sure, they got punched in the mouth defensively week 1 by Streetsboro, but it's something that they can bounce back on. And I think if Girard can get that defense better, I think they have an offense that can hang in there with a bunch of teams in the area.
All right, Coach, here's one I want to ask you about. Niles versus Alliance. Niles gets a 19-16 victory. You have some close ties to Alliance. Obviously, that's where you reside. And your niece, a cheerleader?
Yeah, my niece is a senior cheerleader on that Alliance squad. And, I'm pretty close with both programs. Yeah. I've followed Niles for quite a few years, all the way back to when Coach Shaner was there, obviously. And then with the Alliance program now, very close with some of the coaches on that staff. We compare notes in the off season, get a chance to stop by one of the local watering holes and kind of draw some things up on the old grease board there. This was another great game with a fantastic finish. It was kind of back and forth there for a while. Alliance with a lot of new faces on that squad, and Niles is just kind of growing by leaps and bounds every single week that they play.
All right, we'll move on to the next game, which was everybody in the world had their eyes on. It was Hubbard with 21-19 victory over Cardinal Mooney on Friday night. This was a game that I don't think anybody expected it to be a 2-point game, other than Mooney and Mooney faithful when it was over. But Mooney could have won that game. There were many moments in that game that you look back and you go, man, you wish you could have that one back or that one back or this one back. Hubbard, I mean, when these two teams get together, all records out the window and rosters might as well go too.
Yeah, I think that this is a test that Hubbard needed. Just to kind of come back to earth after week 1. It's a great point for coaches to be able to go, hey, listen, now you understand why we're preaching. We got to prepare for everybody every single week because you got a target on your back now. And then on the other side, I really want to tip my cap to Mooney because there were a lot of people early last week that were saying, oh man, this game's just going to be a blowout and Mooney's going to get walked all over. This isn't the Mooney of old. But credit to those kids from Mooney because they strapped on their helmets and they really came to play that game and they really wanted to prove themselves. They wanted to try and shut down TC, which that's going to be a challenge for a lot of teams this season. I mean, that is a man in the backfield.
You can game plan it all you want, but execution's a different story.
In basketball, we hear guys talk about, you don't want to completely shut him off, but you just want to contain him. I think that's going to be kind of the approach to TC all year long is, can we contain him? Can we keep him to somewhere right around that 100-yard mark and maybe 1 or 2 touchdowns? If so, we feel like we've got a puncher's chance in this.
Ty, what was your assessment of that game?
Yeah, Hubbard finally able to end that streak that Mooney had over them for years too in that regular season. And you know what you do say, all records go out the window when these two teams meet, and especially when Hubbard has to meet Mooney because Mooney has dominated the Eagles in every matchup and playoffs too. So many heartbreaking losses, but this was a big win for the Hubbard Eagles and a big one for them to get over to kind of prove that, hey, we can hang in there now and we can make these deep playoff runs. A lot of returning guys too on that offensive line, and you got TC still back there, and that's going to be the motor that carries this Hubbard Eagles offense this year.
All right, then we stay there. Here's what I want to say is South Range, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, the smallest school in the NE8, one of the smaller schools in our area. University came to town. I was there. Sigler was there. 10 seconds in, the first play of the game, play action fake, touchdown. 10 seconds. You saw it right here on the audible call. And really, South Range probably could have put up 40 more. But they took and I hope I'm not offending anybody. Yeah. I feel like they took their foot off the pedal very early in that game. They didn't score much in the second half, but they didn't need to. They scored 1 touchdown at the end of the game, and that was it. That was it. And the Preppers, they just kind of chipped away, just enough to make South Range feel uncomfortable. But it's the slow, methodical drives that the university had, and they didn't have any quick strike ability. They had big receivers. They had a great running back, and they had a great game plan. But if you don't make it out to South Range this year to see this team, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Absolutely. Coach Yeagley always has his guys ready to go. And I thought that they came out with a tremendous game plan for that game. It would have been interesting to me if it would have been a little closer in the second half to see, some of the wrinkles in the playbook that they would have broke out. But hats off to the South Range defense too. I know the offense gets a lot of press right now, but that defense does a heck of a job, and that's going to be a fun team to watch all year long. I think, everybody kind of looks forward to maybe potentially seeing another matchup with Kirkland, maybe seeing if there's been some growth there. Keep in mind that South Range was a team last year that put Kirkland to the test. Not a lot of schools can say that, and that's something they can definitely hang their hat on going forward and looking towards the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that, if you ask Dylan Dominguez, you know who he's shooting for. He's looking for a rematch with Kirtland, and I can't blame him. That was a game that South Range was banged up, and, I still think if they have a healthy roster that they've got a healthy chance at Kirtland. So here's a game that it did come down to the wire. It was the last play of the game, as a matter of fact. Dover beats Canfield 21-14 in a heartbreaker. You had a chance to watch that game all night long. What were your impressions of Canfield going up against Dover?
Yeah, we had that one right over Mike's shoulder because we knew that was going to be a heck of a game. I kept telling the guys, this Dover team, being from the Stark County area, they're a team that gets slept on quite a bit because they're kind of outside of a lot of people's coverage areas, whether it's, the Canton area papers or news stations, or it's us over here in the Valley that they're kind of a little bit pushed away from us. But I came away impressed by both teams. They just, it was another one of those heavyweight fight games where they were just trading blows constantly. And it had that feeling of maybe whoever has the ball last might have the chance to win this game.
All right, we're moving on to Western Reserve and John F. Kennedy. The Eagles flying high again. Again, they're my pick for the Division 7 state championship. Sorry, Coach. 44-28 over Western Reserve. A week 1 victory against Champion, and then a week 2 victory against Western Reserve. Ty, is there anything or anyone that can possibly stop Warren JFK at this point?
I think you got it right on the head. They're the only ones that could stop themselves. I think going into this year, I don't see how you can consider them a Division 7 favorite for state. Right off the bat, I don't see how you don't expect them to get back to and repeat it. And I think that is the expectation a lot in JFK. You lose a big centerpiece in Hollabaugh, and we know that, and we know everything that Hollabaugh did with JFK, but they contained and they brought back a lot of their guys from last year, and that offense is still as explosive as it was last year, and that defense is coming along and pretty good too, especially in that secondary. I think JFK is going to be a real serious contender going forward, and I think you're going to have to watch out for the Eagles, especially come playoff time.
Catch me if I'm wrong here, Coach, but I think Caleb Hadley in the backfield gives them more balance to their offense because, we know Jesse Likens is no longer there. Yep. We know Hollabaugh is no longer there. But Hadley makes you back up 4 paces if you're a cornerback or if you're a safety, because you're not just going to crowd the box and see if you can stop 9 or see if you can stop 2. You're going to try and you've got to defend the pass now.
No, you absolutely do. And that's not to take anything away from the way that they were last year, but it makes them, it adds that extra wrinkle that you have to prepare for. And, as coaches, that you're always trying to take away their 80 and make them beat you with their 20. This year, it's going to be a lot harder to figure out what that 80 is that you're going to take away.
We're going to take a 2-minute break, 80-second break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the NFL. You're more than welcome to stick around if you'd like. We're going to talk about the NFL, why they're taking a week off here. Like somebody just looked at this schedule and said, hey, let's play 3 or 4 games, and all of a sudden let's have a week off, like a bye week at the beginning of the season. I'm interested to have your guys' points. We want to hear from you as well in the comments section, brought to you by
This one, it's Boardman Mitsubishi. Yeah.
You sold it. You got to sell
That's
it.
right.
And
I
of
had
course,
a brain fart there for a minute.
And of course, hit us up on the hotline as well, 330-886-0813, 330-886-0813. And if you want ownership of the hotline, it's now available. Just talk to that guy across the table. We'll be back right after this on the YSN Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
No matter what the weather, be prepared with a reliable, efficient Ruud gas furnace or air conditioner from MP Vivo Heating and Air Conditioning. Call your energy efficient expert MP Vivo today for a free estimate.
Here at MP Vivo, we rely on Ruud, and so should you.
It's storm season.
I think we're under the gun for some heavy storms over the next couple of hours.
And Storm Tracker 21 is ready.
This is probably the one we're keeping a closer eye on.
On air.
And locally, we're going to have a lot of eyes on our area.
Online.
All right, let's talk high-risk futurecast and the timing of this weather.
On social media and on our app.
Rain will come and go tomorrow. There'll be some dry intervals.
Stay ready with Storm Tracker 21.
The severe weather threat now through around sunset this evening.
Myers Family Insurance knows the importance of a great team.
Our team continues to grow to help you with your Medicare and retirement needs.
The annual election period is October 15th through December 7th. Now's the time to make sure your plan continues to meet your needs for the upcoming year.
Call today.
Hi everyone, this is DJ Yoakley with Your Sports Network. We appreciate your support of YSN and welcome you to the YSN family. Our broadcast streams are brought to you live at no cost to you by sponsors that are local to this community. Without the vision and generosity of our sponsors and partners, we would not be able to bring this game to you today. So please support the great businesses and leaders that are making this game possible. And if you're a business in need of great advertising and sponsorship opportunities, feel free to head over to our site for more information on the right fit for you. We are local, we are loyal, and we are live. We are YSN.
News doesn't stop after the sun goes down. Sometimes you just have to hustle to get it. At 21 News, no matter how far it is, no matter what it takes to get there, we're working to bring you the best stories and the freshest content at 11 p.m. with the context and clarity that makes it worth staying up for, no matter what time it is. 21 News at 11 with me, Aaron Simonek, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 11, news that's worth your time.
WRS Wealth Advisors is the area's premier wealth and retirement specialist. With our combined 70 years experience and comprehensive wealth strategy, we assist our clients attain their goals. Call 330-965-0370 to learn more about our individual and corporate financial planning services, or visit wrswealthadvisors.com. Good luck, athletes.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, we go the extra mile for you.
By finding you the right vehicle at the right price.
And by being with you for every mile of your journey.
Now, we're going the extra mile for you with an additional $1,500 on your trade. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
And welcome back to the YSN Running Point. DJ Yoakley with you. The empty chair over on the other side. Paul Munson calling me for some reason. Ty. I have no idea why. I'm going to try to get back on this host camera. There we go. Hope it's an emergency, I guess. I mean, everybody knows I'm in the chair today because Anthony's sick. Not COVID related, by the way. I'll let that know. Believe it or not, you are allowed to be sick still. It's not just one or the other. You're allowed to be sick. And some people, as the seasons change and it's getting, believe it or not, it's getting a little bit cooler. It's going to be 78 degrees at kickoff on Friday night, according to Storm Tracker 21's app. And if you haven't downloaded that, make sure you do, because that is the app to have when weather breaks. And it broke yesterday, for some reason, Ty, and I know you're a tech guy, so usually I'm on vibrate on my phone constantly because I'm usually on the air or in a meeting or stuff like that. For some reason, my phone went off of vibrate, and out of nowhere, I kept hearing, "Storm alert is coming, storm alert." And it freaked me out. Like, I jumped up, I'm sitting there on the couch, and this thing just starts talking to me. I jumped up, I was like, what the hell was that? And sure enough, that's what happens on Storm Tracker 21. It'll tell you if you're not on vibrate that there's a storm coming on the way or news coming, stuff like that. So kudos to our friends over at Channel 21, WFMJ, and Storm Tracker 21 for keeping us up to date and keeping us dry, mostly on Friday nights. I know there's a couple of us that sometimes we pull a short straw when we're going out and there's no tent or no cover or whatever. But for the most part, we've kept things dry. We've kept things working on Friday nights and Saturday nights as well. So yeah, thanks to 21 for keeping us just absolutely bone dry for the most part. All right, Ty, we talked about all the games, the majority of the games. LeBray beat Valley Christian on Saturday as well. That was a big win for LeBray. Valley Christian still finding their legs. We're going to have a coach's corner with Coach Hake coming up this week, and we'll also with Coach Armini. I know we want to get that because I think LeBray, you asked earlier, who can stop Ursuline in this potentially in Division 4? I think LeBray, that is going to be the matchup to watch later on because I think those two teams are on a collision course, and you got LeBray that can get it done. They're a very balanced team, and they love physical traits. They love to be physical. So I'm excited for that game. If it happens, man, do I want that game to happen. That's automatic GOW for us at YSN. When and if that game happens. But the news of all the preseason games, right? So the NFL does all this stuff about, we want to adjust it. So there's 17 regular season games instead of 16. And then we have 3 preseason games, except for the Cowboys and the Steelers this year that played in the Hall of Fame game, the same place that you announced on Friday night. But there's this week right here. We're living it. We're in it right now that nothing happens. Why? What is this week? It's like one of those things, like you don't know what to do with it. Is this like, because all these teams still have to make cuts. They still have to evaluate their talent. They have less tape on these players to evaluate, and now they've got a week to get down to the 53-man roster. Is that still what it is?
Yeah, I believe so. It might be a little bit higher actually because of COVID related issues or something like that, because of the COVID-19 list that they added with it. But honestly, I don't understand why they didn't just take a team to promote like this week and just put at least one game in this week as the opening game of the NFL season. You could at least highlight 2 teams. There's a few good matchups in week 1 anyway that you could have just pushed to this week and then just give those 2 teams a bye week immediately after if they're going to get a bye week at the beginning of the season anyway. If everyone's going to lay off the beginning, I don't know. You got to do something in this week. It doesn't make sense to have every single team off for a week and have no NFL football from preseason to regular season, have a whole week skip, and there's going to be a 2-week lag between that. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Because
what happens? And I get it. Listen, I understand that you're going to see a Thursday night game. You're going to see 2 Sunday night games, most likely, and probably 2 Monday night games, and everything else is on Sunday. But why? Like, I'm sorry, what's the big deal with playing an extra game? Oh, we want 17 because they want the money. We all understand why. They want the money. The records can be shattered now again. Another 2,000 yard rushing is now like the flag bearer for being the leader in rushing. It was Eric Dickerson has it, and everybody else wants it. They were just never able to do it. Come on, man. Like, if that's the way you got to play, if you have to change the rules in order to break records, is it really worth the record in the first place?
Is it really a record is the question then? Because now if you're going into a season, right, and another good one is the passing yards record that we know Breeze and Brady and Manning are going to be up there. But now all of a sudden, Mahomes, you add another game, an extra game a season, span that out for 15, 16 years. He basically played one more season than all these guys and has another whole season under his belt of stats, yards, passing touchdowns, passing records. But like you said, DJ, it's all for them just to have record breakers, just for them to have more things to advertise, more things to sell, and more things to rake in more money, because that's all it is. It's all about marketability and having something to market and draw money to, because you got to remember these guys are performers too, as well as athletes. So they need to perform to make money, and that's exactly what NFL's trying to do.
Michael chiming in says, what's your thoughts on the state only requiring 5 games to be played to make playoffs? We're going to talk about that in the 2 o'clock hour. So make sure you tune in at 2 o'clock as Ty and I will address that, because that's a topic that I think is an easy hour topic. We could probably talk for hours upon hours on that, because, well, we'll get to it at 2 o'clock. Let's just put it that way. That way we're not spoiling anything. And Michael, just keep on, relax, kick the feet up and enjoy the running point, because, well, the dynamic duo is in attendance here today. We're in the black shirt today, Ty. I can appreciate it. I like it. Usually supporting your red, and this, I know I'm only going to be able to wear this one time, because it's Pirates October baseball, and we all know that the Pirates, unless they're scheduled in October, will not be playing until 2026. So I'm excited. I found this and I was like, hey, I'm going to wear that. I haven't worn that on air yet. So Amo saying, you think someone will get Dickerson's record even with the extra game? I do. And I think this is one of the reasons they're doing this.
Derrick Henry, I think, can easily. There's a few candidates, and Derrick Henry, I think Christian McCaffrey can if he plays a full season. Chubb can. Kamara can now. If he might be the sole offensive piece in that Saints offense. Dalvin Cook. I mean, there's a few guys that I think candidate-wise with an extra game, if they could stay healthy and they play all of them, I think definitely they could break that record.
Okay, so when you look at this, Ty, what are some of the pros of having a 17-game season this year in 2020? And it's not going away anytime soon. I can bet you that.
I mean, I struggle to find many pros to it. The only pro you can get is another unique matchup on your schedule, on your docket, that you wouldn't typically see, because I think what they do normally, you play one team from, I think, the NFC, a full division from there, a full division from the AFC. You play your division twice, and then I think you play the top team, or the team that finished the same record wise or same place as you in your conference in the AFC or NFC. But now you just have an extra team, I think, from the opposite conference. So I mean, the only pro I see in it is just that you get to see another unique matchup in football that you wouldn't normally see per year. But other than that, I don't see a whole lot of pros with it.
Okay, so here's a better question, I think, and a question that not a whole lot of people are asking. Are you more apt to see the 16-game season return, or are we going to see an 18-game season happen?
Oh, I think they're going to definitely go 18 games before they would go back to 16. They're definitely going to go forward before ever going backward, because it's just more money because it's exactly what everyone's already going to complain about. It's stupid to have an odd number of away to home games when you can have it even, when it was even before. So they're going to just up it to make sure that it's going to now be 9-9, 9 home, 9-18. Yeah, and exactly what Amos says, 18 with 2 buys. Exactly. So they're just going to extend it. You get another week. So it's a 20-week regular season. And it's like, it's going to get ridiculous. It's just going to get way too long, I think. I think you had a good thing at the 16 games with the 1 bye week for each team. I think you had a great thing, and a great thing that worked for years. I don't know why all of a sudden we need to change things. There's a lot of other things that they could change as far as rule book wise, and trying to figure out what the language means on some of these rules, and things like now we're going to have taunting as a penalty when we had unsportsmanlike conduct already a thing, but now we're going to add taunting as a thing. They're making all these new rules, and I just don't understand the NFL sometimes.
I'm interested from this point, because as you know, I'm a baseball fan, and people talk about baseball season going on for too long, and they're talking about shortening the season. Yet here we are with football players, and let's say they play 20 weeks essentially in the regular season. Then you have another 4 weeks or so for the postseason. You had 3 weeks for the preseason. Then you're over half a year playing games at some point in the NFL. So you're talking about 6 months out of the year, the NFL controls it. And I understand that they are basically printing money at this point because people will watch anything that has to do with the Shield. However, are we going to look back in 5 years, 10 years and say, man, can we please just go back to 16 games, because it just goes on forever? And listen, if you're on a bad stretch, if you're an 0-16 Cleveland team or an 0-16 Detroit team, or name your team. I'm not going to say Pittsburgh, and you know why. But if you're an 0-16 or 0 for that season going that long doesn't do anything for anybody. Nothing. So do you think this is a solid move for the brand, or do you think this is a solid move to create more revenue for the NFL?
I think it's all about creating revenue, because even the players are having pushback with it. They don't want to play extra regular season games because there's more risks of injury. They don't want to play 2 extra teams and go out on the field 2 extra times and get beat down and battered for another 2 games.
What does it do to your contract too? Think about that. So if you sign a $200 million contract and you're playing 16 games, and all of a sudden you're playing 18 games, under that 200, like, you're not making as much money per game.
Yeah, exactly. And you got to figure there's going to be some questions about that's going to arise, especially with the contract talks, because you're going to be essentially playing another half season if you signed a 4-year contract now. And it still doesn't make sense why they would do it other than revenue wise. And it's all to just generate money, because it's not going to benefit anything else. I don't think. I think all you're going to see is injuries up. And I think the biggest thing you're going to see, what you're seeing right now, and when we talk the GOAT talk of NBA and everything, it's now going to be transitioning to NFL, because there's going to be the GOAT talk 20 years from now about quarterbacks now, because they have all these games, they have all these stats and accolades. So now the stats and the records of Drew Brees and Tom Brady and Manning aren't going to be as impressive as they are these guys that are playing 18-game seasons. So they'll never really understand and appreciate the greatness of these quarterbacks now, and that's exactly what's going to happen, I think, in the younger generation going forward.
So where does the asterisk go? Where does it go on the records of 16 games, or does it go on the records of 17 games?
They would have to put it. I mean, if they're going to say the standard is 17, now you're going to have to put it on the asterisks on the 16 game guys now. So now you're going to have to go down through history and just asterisk all of it because they played one last game. And you're going to have to say played a 16-game season instead of 7. And it's going to get all weird now.
Is 27 weeks of the NFL too much for you?
I think so, because at some point you're just going to get bad football because guys are going to get injured. It's inevitable. The longer you guys play or have guys play in a season, the more injuries it's going to cause. It's what's going to happen. And including playoffs now, which you've already expanded playoffs again to add another game. So you're going to have guys go through another round of playoffs before getting to the Super Bowl. These guys are going to be playing, like you said, possibly upwards of 24 games to get to a Super Bowl. That's ridiculous. And there's going to be so many injuries. By the time you get to the Super Bowl, is there really going to be anything left of what that roster could have been by the time they get there?
To me, it's going to be interesting this year from a rating standpoint, Ty, because at the end of the day, nobody or very few were allowed to go to games last year, right? Same thing with high school football, same thing with college football. The COVID effect is still not over, obviously, and there could be a little bit more of it coming up, as some of the pundits tend to disagree on that topic. But my question is, this year in football, we saw the ratings continue to go down and down and down over the NFL with all the things going on and everybody taking stances and doing all this stuff. And there was actually the ratings didn't really translate last year. It looked better because there was less people at the stadiums and more people watching on television and through their subscription packages. But I would wonder this, are we going to see a huge drop in ratings this year because more people will be going to games and supporting the teams there that are season ticket holders and things of that nature? What does that do for moving it to an 18 game season, or even just keeping it at 17 for crying out loud? Because these advertisers are not going to pay if nobody's watching.
Exactly. And, you have these deals with these stations because they're expecting X amount of ratings too. And then if these ratings aren't meeting standard, now you're going to see a huge drop off. It's inevitable because people will go to the games. Now, I don't know how big of a drop off it's going to be, but I think it's going to definitely be a drop off. And you know what? Another good point that Amo brings up, and you know what? I also said this as well, about them doing the 8 games home and away, and then doing the games in the Mexico, Canada, England, doing their away games. And because NFL is going to inevitably try to do international, and they're going to try to brand it internationally. So they're going to probably start sending teams all over. And then that's another thing then, if you do that these players are going to bitch about, because now they're going to have to get passports. You got to remember, none of these guys are every team in the NFL plays in America. So none of these guys had to get passports. So now you're going to have to get passports to travel to Canada, travel to Mexico, travel to England. Like, now it's going to be a whole thing that these players have to do if you're going to schedule them on it. And that's a whole fiasco as well. And yeah, I think overall ratings, I think, will drop though. I don't know how much, but I think they're definitely going to drop because there's going to be an influx of people going to the games. But also, after a while, too, it just becomes too long, I think, to watch football that long, as many games and as many weeks as that is. Because, like I said, you risk it being bad football, and people aren't going to watch bad football, especially when you get 17, 18 weeks into the season. And what if these teams are well out of it, too? Teams can have divisions locked up 4 weeks in advance of the end of the season. So now you're just going to see 4 games of pointless football where you might just see backups out there too, so they don't risk injury to their starters for the next season. So I think it's just a terrible move.
I don't know how this plays. I think I'm going to go on the other side of Chris Ziegler on this one. He says filled stadiums also play well on TV. The atmosphere at those stadiums lacked watching at home. But here's the thing. If they're at the stadium, they're not watching on television. And when the ratings come out, these sponsors are going to know, and the advertisers are going to want to know how many people tuned in, and they'll get the ratings back, immediately, because CBS or Fox or ABC or whoever it is, ESPN, they can't charge an arm and a leg if nobody's watching. They still have to fill those spots, and if nobody's watching, and what we've seen, obviously a little bit different, is people are going to games right now on Friday nights, on Saturday nights. People are going to get, and we want that. Have no mistake about it. We want people going to the games. But last year's ratings on YSN skyrocketed because people couldn't go to the games, literally because it was mandated that they cannot be there. Now, obviously, you're going to take a little bit of a hit, but when you're sitting at 150,000 people or 150,000 views over the first 2 weeks of the season, that's not bad for us. But people are looking at the NFL differently, Ty, I think, because not just because of COVID, but because of some of the personal stances these players are taking. I mean, look at the abuse in the NFL, the domestic violence cases, things of that's going on in the NFL. People are just tired of it. They don't want anything to do with that garbage anymore. Sports is supposed to be fun, and they don't want to turn on basically CNN on steroids and have somebody reporting on a bad situation from a quarterback or whatever, a domestic violence disturbance, where they're trying to sit there with their kids and teach them a game of football.
Yeah, and honestly, it's just become a madhouse too with the NFL. It seems like every year we have a big scandal or a big story of, the Aaron Hernandez stories and all those, the freaking the Ray Lewis story way back when, and then the Ray Rice story. It's like every single year there's always some sort of story. The Kareem Hunt story from a few years back too. It's always something, and there's always something that swirls around, and it's always reported about, and it becomes it's like 50% sport, 50% drama. It's borderline wrestling. It's borderline professional wrestling at this point.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail dead on the head. All right, another topic I want to talk about before the top of the hour, and we get to this 5-game mandatory. You have to play 5 games in order to get into the playoffs in Ohio. One of the most interesting stories from the weekend for me, and we can go over on this a little bit, were the New York Mets. Did you see this story about how the New York Mets started coming out, and when they got their hits, they started putting their thumbs down? And the reason they do that, when they were asked about it from a reporter, is they said, when the fans, and I'm paraphrasing here, so you'll have to forgive me, when the fans boo us for doing bad, we have to eat it. But so when we do well and we have success, we're booing the fans. I thought that was awesome. I thought it was fantastic, because guess what? I understand the fans pay to see their favorite players, and when the favorite player or favorite players don't live up to a certain stance or a certain level, you boo them, right? But at the end of the day, why can't the players boo back? Like, if you're not going to support us at our worst, stay away from us. Don't support us at our best. Like, just stay home. Just stay home. Pirates fans do it all the time. We're not going to support this team. We're staying home. Instead of booing them and getting all mad and defensive about it whenever they boo you back, because they're being successful. Like, come on, man. Like, it's fun. It's baseball. Like, I don't know how I would take it, but I know how as an outsider, I love it because the Mets are tired of hearing about it. You know, are they going to win the World Series anytime soon? Probably not. But listen, to give that just like team camaraderie and throw the thumbs down when you hit a double, come on. They're having fun with it. And at this point in the season, they've got nothing else to do but have fun with baseball.
I always enjoy a good bad boys team too in any sport, and it does. You need those teams throughout history, and this might be what the Mets are trying to set a standard for, and I love it. I love it because you know what? At the end of the day, yes, these are athletes. Yes, these are guys that are put on pedestals that are making millions of dollars. But at some point, you got to realize that they're also human beings, and they're not going to go out there, hit 1,000, hit a home run every single game that you pay to see them. They're going to make mistakes inevitably because they are still human. They're just humans that have gifts and are talented beyond what we are, but they are still human at heart, and they could still make mistakes. And you know what? If you want to sit there and boo them, when they do good and, you know, they can boo you back, then I see nothing wrong with that as well because you pay to see them and you accept whatever happens too. It's a show as well. Like I said, it's a little bit of athletics, but there's a little bit of showmanship and spectacle to every game you attend.
What's the worst, and this one aside, what's the worst celebration you've seen? Or has any celebration ever, and you're not an easily offended guy, has any celebration ever offended you where you're like, all right, that guy, he stepped over the line or she stepped over the line?
I've never taken anything like that, like super, super serious as far as like celebration wise. The only one that always annoyed me though is Fernando Rodney, the shooting of the arrow he would do at them. And I loved the one time because he would do it so much. And I mean, he's good, so he could back it up. He was good for years, so he backed it up. But I hated it because he was so good against Cleveland for years. And he'd always shoot the arrow at the bench, shoot the arrow at the outfield. And that was the end and signified victory. But I loved the one year that he did it to the Angels, and he did it in the 8th inning. And Trout and Pujols, when Pujols was on the Angels, came back and they shot the arrow back at him, and everything on his way out, they were both shooting the arrow at him. And you know that's what I love. That's that showmanship of going back and forth. And I love when the athletes do it back and forth. And that's why I think the fans and athletes should be allowed to do it back and forth as well.
Yeah, I think I've got no problems with this. The owner came out for the Mets and said, you know, we're going to talk about this internally. You know, we can't be showing up our fans. Sorry, man. When the fans are showing up your players, I think your players get that opportunity. You know, now if that team's 112 and 50, then I think you got another thing coming. You know, then you put that statement out. Then you go, listen, you're winning because we're putting asses in the seats, and oh, by the way, we can afford your salary. When they're booing, it's fair game, man. It's fair game. Like, if that was, listen, that's still somebody's little boy out there, right? You know, because there's some mama that is pissed off that you're booing her little boy because he struck out. He's not trying to strike out. He's not trying to do poorly. But we are entitled as fans. We feel entitled. We feel like we're protected, or somebody owes us something because we went out and bought a jersey, or we went out and bought a ticket, or I'm going to show up to this game, so they better win. That's not what it's about, man. Like, you show up and it's an honor to watch that game. You want to be entertained. You don't get to dictate whether you watch a game, they win or lose. You be part of the game. Support your team. So whenever, something good happens, you cheer them on. Like, I've heard Mets fans, and they call it the Bronx jeer, right? And I know that's more the Yankees, but New York fans have a certain entitlement that they deserve a winner every single year. Sorry to say, money doesn't always solve your problems. And sometimes there's people that want it just as bad. There's 29 other teams that want it just as bad in the major leagues as the New York Yankees or the New York Mets. And sometimes they're going to win. They get paid too.
Yeah, and that's why I love our small market teams like your Pittsburghs, like your Clevelands, like your Tampa Bays, where if the team's not doing well, they just don't show up. And the guys that are there, they're there because they're lifelong fans, just supporting the team, supporting the guys that they have. And you watch the younger guys and you try to get through the process. But with more money, there's usually more expectations, and that's exactly it. With you see it in New York, you see it in Boston, you see it in LA, you see it down even in Atlanta too. When these teams have the money to afford these big salaries, they just expect that they should be winning every single year, and it's not the case. You still have to perform, and the beautiful thing about baseball is you can't buy consistency year to year. No matter how much you try to pay it, you could pay 20, 30, $40 million a year for a player. You will never be able to buy consistency because baseball, and you know how it swings like a pendulum, and the guys that are the most consistent are able to get paid that much, but even they can't stay consistent.
I'll tell you what, I would buy a 63 game victory at this point. If the Pirates could get 63 wins at this point, I'm feeling good, because Siggy and I have a little gentleman's agreement of he thinks the Pirates are going to lose 100 and I don't. And we started this at the beginning of the year. If he loses, I forget. I don't even remember what I get, but I know what happens if I lose. Is I owe him a personalized Pirates jersey, and I don't. Not for that. I've got no problem getting him a jersey. I don't want the Pirates to lose 100 games, and especially if they're not going to get the first draft pick in the Major League Draft the next year. That's what sucks. Is you can have a terrible team and you don't even get redeemed for it. So. Here's me hoping that the Pirates can win 63, and it's going to come down to last week, and I don't like it.
I think they have to go 15-16. I think in this next stretch,
go 500.
If they could go just at 500 or just under 500, a game under 500, they can get. I think they can get 63 victories.
And that by itself, Ty, is a challenge. It's a challenge.
But, you know, it's the struggle that small market fans have to go through with teams. And I think that's what makes us appreciate our teams even more when they do have the winners. And I think, you know, as much as I appreciate that 2016 Cleveland team and the 2016 to 2018 stretch of that Cleveland baseball team and the years that we made the playoffs and won the division, it's the same years that I think you appreciate that 2013 to 2015 Pirates squad.
I mean, 2 years.
Yeah.
And then we get to face now that the first wild card was great. The second wild card was what? Madison Bumgarner.
Yep.
And the third one was Jake Arrieta. So I'm just, or those were flip-flops. I'm sorry. So yeah. Okay. I'm really not excited whenever I'm like, yeah, we got the wild card. Oh crap. We get to face
you get the buzz
pitcher. Great. Fantastic. I'm all excited for that. No. And by the way, you don't get to compare your Cleveland Indians to being a small market team with the Pirates. I'm sorry. That's like me comparing the Steelers to the Browns the last 20 years. There's no comparison. There's no comparison. One team wanted to win and they did, and the other team didn't and they didn't. So, I mean, that's one of those things, like Cleveland fans, Pittsburgh fans, not too far apart from each other, just different sports. The Browns are the Pirates and the Pirates are the Browns. That's exactly what they are in their respective sports. And now things are taken, and the gentleman's agreement will definitely be fun down the stretch. The only thing interesting about this season, that is true, Siggy. That is true. Final thoughts on this, Ty? I mean, you're okay with the thumbs down from coming from the Mets?
Oh, yeah, I'm all right with the thumbs down. I'm all right with anything they do. Hey, if it's all in good fun, they're not offending anybody. Not yet, at least. We'll see if that's going to go down the road, too. But I don't think it's offensive at all to boo the fans because, hey, you pay the money. You pay the money for whatever that goes on that field, and includes booing you.
I love it. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we will talk about that 5-game mandate that the OHSAA came out with, said you have to play 5 football games in order to make the playoffs. Will that stick, or will there be another amendment to that in weeks to come? We'll find out, and we'll at least talk about it here on the YSN Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Be right back.
Your first and last stop with your tax return should be with me, Tracy Bryden at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. No other dealer goes the extra mile to bring you the largest selection of vehicles at one convenient location. With guaranteed credit approval, I will find you the right vehicle and the right financing options for you. I am ready to go the extra mile to show you why no other dealer sells more cars, finances more, and gets you more for your refund than Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
Jimmy Sutton here, Director of Isle, Purple Cat, and Golden String. We are happy to support YSN and two of my favorite people, Scotty Mincher and Super Dave O'Malley. We are an agency that provides services for adults with disabilities. We infuse humor, passion, and joy into their lives. If you know of any folks with disabilities that need our assistance, please contact us.
Your teams work hard and give it all they've got. Well, so does ours, because 21 Sports and YSN give you extra effort when covering local sports. 21 Sports and YSN, winning coverage of our Valley's teams.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to YSN Running Point, brought to you by our friends over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. If you're looking for new and used vehicles, if you're looking for some of the best service around, make sure that you knock on that door. Greg Greenwood, one of the best mentors in the entire area, and he has hired each and every individual based on his personal work ethic, his kind of mentality and corporate structure. Gotta love Greg Greenwood, and you gotta love Greenwood Chevrolet. So if you're looking for new or used cars, as well as opportunity to have your car serviced in today's age, you could be looking at weeks at a time, Ty, and you know it better than anybody. If you go over to Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown, they'll get you hooked up and taken care of. Just make sure you tell them that you love what they do right here on your sports network, and specifically right here on YSN Running Point. Ty, the question is out there. And I'll see if I can pull up the comment real quick that Michael Dunn brought up last hour. What are your thoughts on the state only requiring 5 games to be played to make playoffs? Now, let's set the table for this, Ty, before we get into it. Originally, it was 8 games. You had to play 8 games in order to qualify for making the playoffs. Now, with these teams starting to get these COVID restrictions and these games canceled or moved or, whatever it is, now they move it down to 5. I had a prediction before the season started that we would not have any requirements, and at some point in the season, they would lift it all and everybody's going to make the playoffs once again if they want to. Do you see them sticking with this 5 games and putting their fist down and saying, hey, you have to play 5 games? Or do you see them going, you know what, guys? Everybody gets into the playoffs because we're the OHSAA and we just feel good about life right now. That's the kind of people we are. We're just going to let you in because you deserve it. Everybody deserves it. It's been another hard year. What's your take?
I mean, especially once teams, because I think inevitably there's going to be teams that aren't going to play games down the stretch of the season. And I think that's exactly what happened is that teams started missing games early on in the season, so they had to lower it from 8 once they already realized that teams are already only going to play 8 games, and there was risk of them losing some more. So now I think once a team gets down to that, and there's inevitably, I think, going to be at least one team in Ohio that's going to get down to it, so then they're just going to lift it all anyway and just say everyone just makes the playoffs, because what's it going to do? Hurt them? No, it's not. It's going to line their pockets a little bit more. So, I mean, at the end all be all, they're going to win.
Yeah, you're spot on with that. And we've had this discussion for weeks on end last year about, being able to, everybody makes the playoffs. And, oh, by the way, it's $250 a game to stream it. It's, $100 to do a radio broadcast. It's $1 zillion to have it on television. And I mean, here's the thing, and I get it. The OHSAA is a business, and I've got no problem with that. I want to make that perfectly clear. However, they are a nonprofit business. That's where I have the problem, because they have 2 buildings down in Columbus that they own that they didn't make any cuts on. They didn't liquidate a building. They didn't do any of that stuff. I think 17 full-time employees for the OHSAA. None of them were that I know of lost their positions during all that stuff when people were worried about their jobs and things of that nature. And now we're going to sit there and they're going to dictate the middle. Like, I've got a problem when people move the goalposts, right? On something that they said, hey, it's got to be here. There's going to be teams that still have 10 games in this season. I firmly believe that. There's going to be teams that have 8. There's going to be teams that have 9. There's going to be teams that have 7. If there's a team that has 5 COVID games, right, and they split their season, there's a problem. There's a problem because you are probably dinged on 1 or 2 of those, right? At least, unless you have really, really terrible luck. And I'm talking like Murphy's Law luck. But I don't see how this fixes the problem. The problem to me is there's already too many teams in the playoffs. And now you're just opening up Pandora's box again, just enough to say, well, we're okay, but we don't want any teams that necessarily have losing records in the playoffs. So we'll bring it down to 5, and we're still going to go by points. There's problems like riddled in that theory, is there not?
Yeah, there is, especially if a team plays 10 games and say they go 5-5, and there's a team that only plays 7 games and say they go 4-3. Are you really going to put the team that goes 4-3 over the team that goes 5-5, depending on wins, when the other team played a full 10-game slate? I don't know. Like that's where you're going to see something's going to happen like that, and you're going to see a community get real pissed off about it, and they're going to either slight someone from the playoffs that played more games than another team, or there's going to be an instance where that team is going to be a lower seed than what they should have been, and I think you're going to see some communities be upset about it.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, you could go the next 3 weeks, you go 5-0, and just say, you know what? We're not going to play the last 5 games of our season, and we're going to be on COVID restriction, and we're going to have COVID checks every week. And not that people would do this or a school would do this, but essentially you can say that you have a positive COVID test week after week after week after week. And if you're 5-0, you could still make the playoffs over a team that played 10 games, and maybe they're 9-1, 8-2. But that 5-0 team could still make the playoffs over you. And you're right. You're going to have some of those pitchforks out in the front yard in Columbus. They want some answers because, well, we beat, there's a team, South Range. Look at South Range. They're a Division 5 team. They beat a Division 2 team on Friday night. They could probably make the playoffs right now. If they didn't play or if they lost the rest of their games, they could probably make the playoffs right now as it stood. Probably not a great seed, but they would make the playoffs in my prediction, in my estimation. You could have a team that does this, not that Matt Seidel would ever do this, and I'm only saying it because he's out there and he probably hears me and rolling his eyes right now, but if Sebring wins 3 games, or wins 5 games and they go, hey, listen, like my guys can stay healthy for 5 weeks if we just check the box and say, hey, COVID. Now, he would never do that, but the opportunity is there for gamesmen, and that's what coaches are. They're gamesmen to do that.
Absolutely, and I don't think you'd be surprised if you do see a team do that. All of a sudden, they're not playing the last few weeks of their season, or maybe they play 6 or 7 games, and then the last 3 they just take it easy and take a rest, because basically you just gave coaches the ability to dictate their schedule. You just gave it in the hands of the coaches to dictate who's going to make the playoffs. So really, it's going to be a lot harder for certain teams to make the playoffs now, because not everyone's going to play that 10-week schedule. And I think that's the biggest thing that's unfair, is because you don't have that blanket or that foundation or that blanket, where everyone is playing under 10 games. It's easy. You could go back and forth, look at record-wise how many wins they have. It's not, does this 5 wins mean something because they only played 8 games over this 5 wins because they played 9? It's like now you have to look at how many games they played, and it adds a whole other element. And you're right, DJ, because now it just gives the power in the hands of the coaches. They pretty much say, okay, we have enough games to make the playoffs. Let's check out now.
Yeah, you kind of max headroom there for a little bit, man. So I apologize. I don't know what's going on. Maybe a little bit of technical difficulty. Now you're frozen. There you go. You're back. Let's say week 9, right? Week 9, you're going into your game. You get a win on a Friday night or a Saturday. Week 10, you got a tough opponent. Week 10, it's maybe a smaller school than you, right? But there's a real good chance that they're probably going to compete with you and they might beat you. Is that a situation where if you look at your schedule, you're already in the playoffs as it is? You maybe do one of these guys. You do the old tap on your noggin and you say, we're out for week 10. And just let the chips fall as they may, because if you lose that game, you're out of the playoffs. You lose the points, all that stuff, especially if you're playing a school smaller than you. I see this happening. I see it happening, and I see it being a big time problem for coaches who are trying to get in the playoffs and play by the rules and play fair when I believe that they're just creating all kinds of trouble to deal with down the stretch here.
Yeah, and it gives the upper division schools everything to gain and the lower division schools everything to lose, because you're right. You come down to week 8, week 9, say you have that 8-9 wins, you have enough wins, you have enough to put yourself in a good seed in the playoffs. You got some lower division seeds or lower division teams coming up on your schedule. You are afraid you might lose to them, and in turn lose some computer points. You could just check out of those games, and in turn that's going to hurt these lower division schools, because now they're not going to get these games with these upper division schools as much towards the end of the season. And those are typically games too where 5 wins can get you into a good spot in the playoffs if you're a D7 school. So I mean, D7 now, you might not have that opportunity to play that D5 school and get that big win, which means computer points a lot of the time for those lower division schools to get them in good positions to make the playoffs. So I think it just muddies the waters all around.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. I don't like the 5-game thing. I don't like it at all. I think if they're going to do it, just rip off the Band-Aid, let everybody back in, and then guess what? Now you know you're in. There's nothing to hide from. You don't have to worry about what happens when you cancel games. You don't have to worry about the computer points. All you have to worry about is where your team stacks up at the end of the season from a standpoint of, where you're ranked. Where are you going to be? Who are you going to play? Because right now, somebody's going to be left in the dark, and they're going to call BS. I firmly believe that. And I think there's going to be somebody out there that gives them reason to call that card on the table, because, miraculously, a team can miss week 10, but week 11, they're going to be good to go, and they're going to be nice and healthy. It's like having a bye week, right? And if you don't need the game, why play it? If you're going to be healthy, I would rather have that's going to be a 6-week run at the end of the season than having a 6-game run at the beginning of the season. Wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, and the worst part is you don't even have to wait till the end of the season too. So teams, if you're an upper division team, you could pretty much pick and choose when your bye week's going to be. And say you are a D3 team and you're playing a D5 team like a South Range, and you don't want to lose to that lower division team. We got COVID this week. We can't play them this week. So you check out, and in turn that loses some computer points for South Range, because if they say they might be able to beat a team, this is all hypothetical, not saying any of these teams were doing this, of course, but that loses the computer points for South Range, so in turn puts them in a worse position in playoffs, so that might be making them a lower seed than what they would have been, and in turn it would make the team that was a higher division a better spot in the playoffs on their end. Like I said, everything for the higher division teams to gain and everything for lower division teams to lose.
Yeah, which is opposite of what we thought it was going to be. We really thought this was going to be an advantage for the lower division teams, because if you if you're a Division 7, you beat a Division 5, or you somehow beat a Division 4 team, all of a sudden you're cooking, man. You're cooking with peanut oil at that point, because that one win could be all you need to get into the playoffs, depending on if they can start racking up points for you. Maybe they just had an off game. So this is all very interesting to me, Ty, but I think, again, the OHSAA is I don't know if they're just have blinders on, or they feel like everybody's going to play by the rules. I don't feel like it's going to be like that. Coaches, no matter what they say, are in it for their kids. They have a responsibility to fight for their kids, to be in it for their kids, to put their kids, obviously, in the best chance to win football games and to have a great experience under their tutelage. What is going to be the difference? I don't see many coaches saying, hey, if I can do this and it's a great outcome for our program, I'm not going to do it because it's not the right thing to do. There's a few people out there, a few coaches and a few programs to do that. But when it comes down to revenue, after last year, I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is you can look at all those coaches too. We have all the rankings and where they ranked teams too in their division, where they think everyone should have finished last year too. I remember us reading it off too, and that's a perfect insight to show that where they slight some of those teams, because there was definitely teams that were slighted in some of their rankings, teams that were definitely a 1 or a 2 seed that were ranked as a 9 or a 10, just to kind of to slight them a little bit and prevent them that way. If they would do that for that, there's no way no way that someone's not going to pass up the opportunity of slighting a team in a game and saying, we're not playing this week. No, thank you. We have COVID. I think you're definitely going to see an instance of that sometime this season.
All right, let's put a bow on this. So you like this or you don't like this, the 5-week?
I personally, I don't like it because I like the fact that you need to earn it. And you need to earn the playoffs in some form or fashion, and you need to play a minimum amount of games. If you know what, 8 I thought was okay, because if you want to give a team 2 weeks, fine. 8 is one thing. I think you should still make them play 10, but I understand COVID's still going on. We want to be gentle, fine. Let's do 8. But I think once you start getting under that, then it just starts becoming ridiculous, and now you're going to muddy the waters. And like you said, teams that have 5 wins, you should not be considering them up there with the teams that have the 8 wins or the 7 wins if they're 7-3. Like, there's a big difference in playing 5 extra weeks, and there might be a contributing factor to why those teams have those losses, because you can get beat up easily playing 5 extra weeks of football.
We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, Ty, let's talk about the teams that are the sleepers in this area. I really think after 2 weeks, we have a kind of a grasp on who can make some noise and who are the teams that need to kick it into gear in week 3 and really try to save their season early on. Let's talk about that. More football talk when we come back right here on the YSN Running Point, brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, we go the extra mile for you.
By finding you the right vehicle at the right price.
By giving you confidence in your vehicle with a Greenwood Advantage warranty.
By guaranteeing you financing,
regardless of your situation or credit history.
And by being with you for every mile of your journey.
Now, we're going the extra mile for you with an additional $1,500 on your trade, plus the best selection of new and used vehicles in the area.
Visit greenwoodchevrolet.com and tell us how we can go the extra mile for you.
Quality, customer service, and integrity. Those are the 4 words that have driven our success since 1957 at Joe Dickey Electric.
Joe Dickey Electric is one Mahoning Valley landmark business that stays current with the requirements of our customers. Family owned and managed, we are an electrical contractor and energy solutions provider. Every member of our team adds to his or her skill set through ongoing training. Residential, commercial, industrial, automotive, and more. We keep ahead of the needs of our customers with a fleet of more than 50 vehicles and 24/7 emergency service, so you're never left in the dark.
Jimmy Sudman here, Director of Isle, Purple Cat, and Golden String. We are happy to support YSN and 2 of my favorite people, Scotty Mincher and Super Dave O'Malley. We are an agency that provides services for adults with disabilities. We infuse humor, passion, and joy into their lives. If you know of any folks with disabilities that need our assistance, please contact us.
Your teams work hard and give it all they've got. Well, so does ours, because 21 Sports and YSN give you extra effort when covering local sports. 21 Sports and YSN, winning coverage of our Valley's teams.
Hi everyone, this is DJ Yoakley with Your Sports Network. We appreciate your support of YSN and welcome you to the YSN family. Our broadcast streams are brought to you live at no cost to you by sponsors that are local to this community. Without the vision and generosity of our sponsors and partners, we would not be able to bring this game to you today. So please support the great businesses and leaders that are making this game possible. And if you're a business in need of great advertising and sponsorship opportunities, feel free to head over to our site for more information on the right fit for you. We are local, we are loyal, and we are live. We are YSN.
News doesn't stop after the sun goes down. Sometimes you just have to hustle to get it. At 21 News, no matter how far it is, no matter what it takes to get there, we're working to bring you the best stories and the freshest content at 11 p.m. with the context and clarity that makes it worth staying up for, no matter what time it is. 21 News at 11 with me, Aaron Simonek, and Derek Steyer.
21 News at 11, news that's worth your time.
WRS Wealth Advisors is the area's premier wealth and retirement specialist. With our combined 70 years experience and comprehensive wealth strategy, we assist our clients attain their goals. Call 330-965 0370 to learn more about our individual and corporate financial planning services, or visit wrswealthadvisors.com. Good luck, athletes.
At Greenwood Chevrolet, we go the extra mile for you.
By finding you the right vehicle at the right price.
And by being with you for every mile of your journey.
Now, we're going the extra mile for you with an additional $1,500 on your trade. Only at Greenwood Chevrolet.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. DJ Oakley, Ty Bartell with you here. Running Point brought to you by Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Again, anything you need from new vehicles, used vehicles, and service, you need to see our friends over at Greenwood Chevrolet in Austintown. Proud, and I mean proud, supporters of your sports network. Ty, before the break, I asked what team is the team to watch. Maybe we didn't have them on our radar going into 2021 here, but they've done some things to impress us in the early going over the first couple weeks. Who do you have as your sleeper, so to speak, in 2 weeks? 2 weeks in, rather.
One of my teams right off the bat, I don't know how you can't mention the Jefferson Falcons right off the rip. I mean, 2-0 to start. I think new coach over there. I think everything. I think the culture shift, everything new being in Jefferson has really just given them an influx of energy right now. And going into the season, you can really tell week to week how they're playing. Their energy on the defensive side of the ball has been electric, and offensively figuring it out week to week, figuring out ways to win, figuring out ways to finish drives, and getting better and solidly improving. It looks like from week 1 to week 2 on offense. I'm really excited about this Jefferson team, especially when they go to play this very, very tough NE8 conference.
All right, go out on a limb here, Ty. Does Jefferson make the playoffs this year?
I think it depends on how many wins. How many wins are you thinking Jefferson's going to need to make the playoffs? Being in the division, would you think what's their win total? 7? You think 7 needed?
I think with some of the teams they have just in their conference alone, that they could probably get in with 5.
5? You think a little bit lower? Okay. We'll go with 5. I think 5, and you already have 2. I think they can be competitive with almost everybody here in this NE8. I think Jefferson, if we're saying 5 wins is the benchmark, I think the Jefferson Falcons can definitely make the playoffs and get a 5-5 record out of this season.
All right, who's a team that let's go through mine first. I gotta admit, and I know we haven't seen him 2 weeks. We've only seen him for 1, but Coach Seidel has me drinking the Kool-Aid over in Sebring, and that purple Kool-Aid is tasting really good right now. When you see what they were able to do on tape on Saturday night, I mean, you got 2 horses in the backfield. You've got a quarterback. You've got a couple receivers now that can make plays for you, and I saw some great defense, like swarming to the football, stuff that you didn't see necessarily last year or the season prior to that. You saw Cody Horning coming off the back end and making solo tackles for Sebring in the last year or 2. And now you're seeing, they're cutting the edges. They're making sure the contain is there. I'm buying into Sebring. I really am. And I got to believe that if they get 4 wins, they're in. And anything on top of that is a cherry. So I'm really impressed with Sebring in the early going of this year. Now, this Matthews game this week is going to be a big test for both teams, and it's going to tell you exactly where they stand going into week 3 and the rest of the season, really. But as long as Sebring can stay healthy and stay motivated, which I don't think with a coach like Matt Seidel, it's going to be that difficult to stay motivated because he's going to be on you every step of the way. I think Sebring makes the playoffs for the first time in program history here in 2021.
And that'd be huge for us to cover it every step of the way, too. And with Coach Seidel being such a huge part, an integral part of our YSN family, it would be that much more special to have that close-knit relationship and for him to be such a huge part of that in Sebring history. We already know how much and how he cherishes Sebring football and Sebring as a whole. So I think it would be huge for him and for that town for him to be able to do that.
Who's the team you feel most sympathy for at this point, whether it's because they haven't got off to the type of season that they wanted to, or whether it's the team that hasn't played yet? That's where, and I'll start off just so you have kind of a baseline. I feel awful for both Latonia and Wellsville. Neither team able to put their product on the field. Latonia has a brand new field waiting for them, brand new turf field waiting for them to trample on and to play. You add Lisbon into that as well with a team. At least they have a game in. But those three teams, all out of the EOAC, they haven't completed their games to this point. And Lisbon's the only one that's played one. They played against Wyndham and lost. But you look at Wellsville, they've got a pretty new field down there. And if you've ever been to Wellsville, you understand how seriously they take their football. And then you move over to Latonia. Like, this was the first year you were trying to figure out what it was going to look like after the what's his name? Help me out. The running back
for, what was it again?
Latonia.
Marco Ferry.
Marco Ferry. Thank you very much. Yeah. For some reason, that eluded me. So the first season without Marco Ferry, what does your team look like? You don't know yet. You don't know what to expect, but you got a beautiful field to play on. You know that you have a lot of supporters out there that are looking to see. And I believe Latonia has some gaps that have been filled since Ferry left. So I'm excited to see these teams. I feel so bad to not have them on the football field because, it's so tough because they work so hard, and to not play and to not have a complete season is tough enough. But to watch everybody else go to Disney World, and be excited about week 1 and returning to football, and you've got to sit and watch it on YSN quarantine. That's tough, Ty. That's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. And another team you feel bad for, that's not really in the realm of it, but the team that played 2 games, I don't know how you don't feel bad for Cheney, and how they had so much momentum coming into the season and immediately are given a wall to run in and have to try to run through, losing number 5 starting quarterback Jason Hewlett. I mean, you lose that pretty much first quarter of a game. Of game 1, and now you have to readjust your whole season, plus all the outside things that are going on too with Cheney. And of course, Chris Emil and Coach Emil doesn't want you to feel bad for him and doesn't want you to feel bad for his team because it just makes his boys tougher, and he knows that. And I know that's why Cheney's going to be responding. But I mean, you just feel for Cheney because I felt for that game 1 too, because I knew it was going to be a close game with Fitch, and I knew Cheney had the pieces to contend with Fitch, and losing Jason right off the bat, you just knew. You felt bad for Cheney right off the bat because everything that could go wrong did go wrong in that game. And you hope for a bounce back. And I think what we saw in Boardman is starting to become a bounce back. I just want to see them get some wins under the belt because they definitely deserve it.
Okay, so the team you feel most sympathetic for, I'm sorry? Like the team?
The team that I feel most sympathetic for, though, that's not the one I feel bad for is Cheney, but the one I feel most sympathetic for right now, I don't know how you don't go further than Lisbon and everything going on there. And we don't, of course, want to highlight like bad news, but obviously it's a very tough time in Lisbon. And obviously we know the game already before was canceled because of COVID protocol, but tough times going on in Lisbon. But this is a very good community and a community that can rally together. And this is an opportunity for the Lisbon community to kind of come together and shine out. And I know we were all wearing blue the other day for them, but this is definitely one that you feel most sympathetic for because it's not even in the realm of what's happening on the football field, and it's not even in the realm of what's going on between X's and O's and on the sideline. It's real life that hits you, and once real life starts draining into the game, it hits a little bit harder. So yeah, you definitely feel bad for Lisbon, and I just hope that going forward that this community rallies together because I think they have a team that can definitely be a very competitive football team this year.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ty, 100% from that standpoint. You got
an air leak or something? What's going on?
Weed whacking out in the back. Anything goes here in Bulldog country. You know how that is. I'm going to ask you, who's the player that you've had most fun watching up to this point this year? Obviously, probably a little bit favored towards Austintown Fitch since you've had a couple of their games the early going. But maybe you've watched the audible call, or maybe you've watched a game or two on YSN on your way home, or whatever it may be. Who's the one player, or read the highlights, or read the stories on ysnlive.com as well? Who's one player that has stood out to you in the early going of this football season through 2 weeks?
Oh my goodness, there's so many great quarterbacks too that I've been watching. I mean, you got to highlight Salem Jackson, you got to highlight Balone with Lowville, but for me too, what I've had the most fun watching and the most fun guys calling it too, because you just get excitement. TC Caffey over there with Hubbard, man. I mean, especially that week 1, 456 yards, like a man, putting himself in a record book, top 15 all time, and then coming out with a big win over Mooney too, a team that you finally got over. TC Caffey's been so much fun to watch, and it's been so much fun to see Romo and Jamie's excitement each and every week with this guy, because I mean, they cover him and they did a great job too. Post-game interviews, you could check those out on ysnlive.com too. We have all those up, and I believe Jamie did a player profile with him as well, but he's been a real fun guy to watch, and you got to watch his interviews too, because he's a real cool kid.
So I'm going to go with South Range to start things off. Everybody has their eyes just squarely locked on Dylan Dominguez, number 34 in the backfield, great safety as well on the other side. And the guy that's really stepped up, not that Dominguez hasn't or any of the other Raiders haven't in their 2-0 season thus far, Billy Skirpak, the junior quarterback who was a question mark going in because he was getting a little bit of pressure from Ethan Zins in a QB battle. And Coach Yeagley says, listen, we're going to go with Billy. We still have a great quarterback in Ethan. If you know what hits the fan. So that would never come from Coach Yeagley, by the way. That would come from DJ Yoakley. But it's one of those situations where Billy Skirpak has made a believer out of me because he can run the ball. He's almost a carbon copy of Michael Patron, except for the fact that I think he's got a little bit more touch and a little bit more zip on the fastball, so to speak. I mean, he's a good pitcher on the baseball field, and my guy is throwing dimes on the football field, and he's got South Range more balanced than I thought they would be this year. So I'm going to give credit there. How can you take anything away from Devin Sherwood from that standpoint? I mean, the guy just continues to produce, still able to keep Falcon Nation squarely on his shoulders, let other players shine through, because they have if you're in opposition, you got to plan for two. You got to plan for the QB, and you've got, the backfield is on fire at Fitch. And obviously, even with Orville, that's his dad, with Todd Simons out, you're finding receivers down the field. You're finding receivers each and every step of the way at every level. And Sherwood just continues to shine. So I like him. But Brady Shannon, just unbelievable. And on the same token, I got these guys on the same level right now, Brady Shannon and Vinny Balone. Because Balone, with 7 touchdown passes in week 1, I had one with his legs, and then he goes nuts again, goes bananas in week 2. He's got to be a contender for one of the players of the year in our area. And then you got to ask yourself, is he better than Brady Shannon? Is he on the same level as Brady Shannon? I think those are 2 guys right now that are muscling for the top quarterback in the area.
I think so as well. You know what? Louisville was one of those sleeper teams too that I had coming into this season that, what they finished last year, I know they could be better. And especially with Vinny Balone and the weapons that they had returning. And boy, oh boy, have they shown up these first 2 games. And you know what? I think Louisville is going to be one of those teams come the end of the season. You're going to be talking about them. And I think they are going to be fighting for playoff positioning. And I think they're going to get a decent seed in the playoffs as well, because they got Vinny Balone under center and what he's able to do too. And, chains are unleashed. I already said, throw 40, 50 times a game. His chains are unleashed, and what he's able to do with his chains unleashed, man, it is so much fun to watch. Going to set records. I think he is going to compete with Brady Shannon too in the area, and I think these 2 are going to be so much fun to watch, respectively, with their own teams and what they're going to do all season long.
Isn't it crazy to think that football is 1A for Brady Shannon? It's in baseball. He's going to UCF on a baseball scholarship. My guy is playing D1 baseball. He's an unbelievable baseball player, as a matter of fact. Great third baseman, can play shortstop. Obviously has a strong arm, and his bat speed is ridiculous. But right now, we're talking about him being one of the best quarterbacks. Do you think it's feasible that a school comes along and just knocks his socks off with an offer to play football and baseball?
There very well might be. And hey, man, it's still your senior year. So I mean, what he does in this season could very well set him up even better for his future and with scholarship opportunity. Certainly. I mean, and what he's doing on the football field, you got to be raising eyes. And especially with the pre-rankings of this is going to be the #1 Division IV team. So there's already eyes on them. And there's eyes on the guy under center, and there's definitely eyes on him after what he just did to Bishop Hartley last week and what he just did to Hickory this week. I don't see how there isn't eyes on him. And I mean, you're right, DJ. And on top of that, he's also not a bad basketball player as well. He's pretty darn good at that as well. So a 3-sport athlete that can really fill in the box for in every category. But I can definitely see him being a 2-sport athlete in a college somewhere.
All right, we've talked about the players. We've talked about the teams. Let's talk about the leadership here in our last segment here on Running Point. We are going to shut it down a little bit early today, about 2:45, as we get ready for the YSN Power Hour, which I will be on that as well. Pulling the short straw here today. I'm kidding. It's an honor to be on this show, and it's an honor to be with you, Ty. But I need a little bit of a break. I need another one of these guys, if we're being honest. Not a sponsor yet. Matt Seidel, get on it.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the coaches, the leadership. What coach has impressed you thus far in this season? Maybe coming off of out of nowhere, maybe someone who's just absolutely coming through on expectations that the community or the school or his program has set forth. Who has really impressed you to this point from a coaching?
I've tried to stay away from Austintown and highlight other schools, but I can't go without highlighting what Coach Parker has done with this Austintown community and making the whole community buy into a football program again, and a program that it hadn't bought into really for the couple years prior, because we know we were going through hard times after the passing of Coach Anarella and what he meant to that community. It was a rough patch, and Coach Parker was kind of that beaming light that came in and said, get on my back. We're going to get you to the promised land. And especially with last season, he got everyone, it seemed like, in an Austintown community to buy in, because it was always week after week. Okay, this is finally the week they're going to lose. This is finally the week they were going to lose. And they just kept on upsetting teams. And they came away with that 6-0 record, and it really helped out. And again, proving teams wrong and proving other doubters wrong again this season. I think Coach Parker doing a fantastic job with that the Austintown program. If there was a second, who would it be for you? For me, oh my goodness. I mean, it's so hard. I'll go with a new coach, because I want to highlight older coaches, but I'll go with a newer coach, and I'll go with Antrim over there in Boardman too. I'll stay within the AAC, because you know what, Boardman going through a little bit of struggles these last few years, and especially coming into this season, things were looking down for Boardman. And, Antrim was able to come in and rally his troops, really start making a star out of Sean O'Horo now, and making him a guy where you have to pencil him in when you have to face him now, because he's a legitimate threat week in and week out. So I think it's been huge for Antrim, and it's been huge too for AAC football, because it's going to bring back that old Boardman and Fitch rivalry too. And I think they both have the coaches for the future in both their programs. I've got to go with two different coaches, coaches that have had a lot of success in their career. You look to Coach Dan Reardon over at Ursuline, and I don't want to bang the Ursuline drum too hard today on the show, because here's the thing. And he'll be the first to tell you, they haven't won anything yet, right? They're ranked at the top of their division. They're ranked at the state. But he's going to tell you that we haven't won anything until we're standing at the end holding a trophy. And he's got a few of those. In the cabinet, so to speak. So, but here's the thing, Ty. When I think about the Ursuline program, I think about where they started from when Dan Reardon took over. There wasn't much. I mean, they were a lost football team when Larry Kemp, and I'm not saying it's Larry Kemp's fault, but they were a lost football team because there wasn't much for Coach Kemp to go with, and the cupboard was bare. And then all of a sudden, you get a Brady Shannon, you get some of these guys coming up the ranks, and Coach Reardon comes back, and all of a sudden they go from a team that you didn't know if they were going to go 1-9 or win a second game, to a team that 2 straight games they've scored over 50 points, and looking for a third here this week. They've got their hands full, obviously, but a team that stayed ranked. That is a triumph story. That is a story of a coach leading by example, building great coaches around him, and having these kids
confident enough to do exactly what they're supposed to do. And this is back to Ursuline football. This is the Ursuline football that I remember when I was in high school. That was you knew you were going to be in for a long night when you played the green and gold. And I think everybody knows that moving forward. Now, that being said, they play a nice uphill schedule to get into that playoff hunt in week 11. But I think Coach Reardon's going to have his guys ready each and every week, and it's going to be a contest at the very least. The second one, my guy, Coach Dan Yeagley. I mean, unbelievable what he's been able to pull out the last 2 weeks out of his guys to score 10 seconds in. And it's funny because we always, during my interview, you'll see me try to pull out of him the saying of, we're just going to play South Range football. He said it every single show for 5 seasons of Coach's Corner. He says it every single one. And it's the South Range football that we're so accustomed to, Ty, has changed over the 5 seasons and 4 years that we've covered South Range. It's changed from being smash mouth, punch you in the face football. We're going to go 4 yards in a cloud of pebbles to 10 seconds in, they're throwing a 55-yard or 65-yard touchdown pass on a play action. That's not the South Range football that your dad remembers. I can guarantee it. But I will tell you this, South Range football is successful football at this point, and Coach Yeagley has not racked up an unbelievable 200-plus win record by not adapting to circumstances, that he had control of. So he's a big guy of control your controllables and, let the chips, fall as they may. And my guy is just doing it again this year. And he's doing it. Congratulations to him. His first year of quote unquote retirement. I know his wife, Kelly, is working him like crazy, and there's nobody he'd rather work for than his wife. But I know that he's excited to focus on football here for the next 16 weeks or so, or the next 14 weeks, and see how far he can take this Raider team, because I think they made the impression in week 1 over Springfield. I think they opened a lot of eyes, and Ty, I got to believe that they're going to open up even more as they start that NE8 schedule next week in week 4. So I'm excited for it. I think we just named 4 great coaches that have done great things for the kids and their programs. And I don't think you can go wrong. I'm just excited because we are surrounded by a ton of coaches in this area that are doing great things for the programs, the kids, and the communities.
Absolutely. And I mean, we're so lucky to be able to cover these coaches and get a chance to talk with all of them. And like we said, there's coaches like you mentioned, coaches of experience like Reardon and Yeagley, and coaches of youth such as Antrim and Parker, but there's coaches of all different mindset. And that's the beautiful thing. There's no blanket term for coaching. It's so many different philosophies and so many different coaching styles, but all of them can work if you really buy into a program. And that's the beautiful thing about sports.
Well, I got some bad news for you, brother. It looks like you're going to have to put up with me for another day tomorrow, starting at noon right here on YSN. Anthony, get better, brother. Get better. We know you want to be here, but he's just a little under the weather. So Anthony out and still working on the website and stuff like that. So he's a trooper, and hopefully he can continue to get better and get back in the seat here at YSN World Headquarters. But until then, Ty, it'll be you and me, brother. We'll be keeping it locked in from 12 to 3, or at least 12:45 or 2:45 right here on the YSN Running Point, presented by Greenwood Chevrolet. That's going to do it for today's show. Stay tuned. Power Hour is next. I'll be making another appearance coming up in about 15 minutes. So we'll see you there, and we'll see you tomorrow, 12 to 3, right here on Running Point on YSN.